Leave it alone. Welcome to the show. Today we have a lot to discuss. There's a lot that's happening. There's newspaper headlines. Schools may not reopen in September. This is now becoming a tired story, and I think this now we need to call out the editors in the media houses. Come on,
leave us alone.
Leave us alone, okay? Anyway, and then everything else that's happening around Africa. Malawi has a new president who was sworn in the other day. Praise the name of the Lord. We are going to be speaking to people from Malawi to hear what exactly has happened there.
Eric, I didn't quite hear a note of sincerity in the hallelujah bit.
What?
The praise the Lord bit.
Praise the name of God. Because this is how we are. That's how he speaks. So we'll be speaking to some journalists in Malawi this morning, right? To know the inside story of what to expect of this new man. Lazarus rises. And then there's an expose that was released by the BBC last night from Ghana. What's it about?
It would appear that there's fake cures for the coronavirus, so COVID-19, and those are being brought to the fore. Some
entrepreneurial people in the West African country of Ghana have decided that there's a way they can make money out of this. Okay. So
they're not the first. So I mean, okay.
Yeah, Now, so what, right? We'll be discussing this as well with the producers of that story. And we are going to continue with our story that we started yesterday. And this is about Madam Beatrice Mwende, the woman who was accused of killing her 4 children in Naivasha. Today, we speak to Kituo cha Sheria, a non-governmental organization that champions the right of those who feel like they are downtrodden. Right, so we'll be speaking to the executive director of Kituo cha Sheria to find out what, to discuss various aspects of this particular case and the issue of social protection in the country. However, let us begin where we always begin. How many fellow Kenyans have tested positive in the last 24 hours?
Well, the numbers we're looking at, comparative to the last couple of days, was low. 120 cases, what we saw yesterday. Right. Now, if we're looking at the numbers in total for Kenya, yes, it is over. Just a second, it is over 6,000. Specifically, Kenya now has 6,190 cases, with 120 having been tested positive over the last 24 hours, being yesterday afternoon. And we're likely to see more as the days go by. It's interesting because we then saw yesterday a report that was released about July 1st and when the European Union will open their borders for flights coming in to the European countries. And the 2 countries that we've been talking about for the longest time in terms of what they've been able to do concerning measures are one of the few from the continent that will be allowed back in, namely Rwanda and Uganda, for what they've been able to do, keeping lockdown measures tight, keeping the rates of infections low, even when everybody else around numbers continue to rise. So if that's indicative of what they could have done that was good, here is one pass mark as per when now those borders open, which countries will be allowed through. Interestingly, the United States is not on that list. So
is the UK on that list?
The UK, well,
now that UK is no longer Schengen.
Now that they're no longer part of the Europe, now that they no longer fly that flag, let me see.
The number of countries that are now
on this specific list. Yes, the United States is not. Let's see if the UK is on the list. Give me 1 second, CT, and it is not. It's not. It's not on the list. The UK is not on the list.
Well, it's the owner.
It's the owner of the European Union. So it's the owner of the union. So that one kind of goes without saying. But anybody outside of the union.
So African countries, in this particular part of Africa, we only have Uganda and Rwanda.
Yes.
Kenya, Tanzania, of course, South Sudan.
No.
DRC, Malawi. No.
Nope.
Burundi, no.
No.
All right. West Africa.
West Africa. Nobody. Nope.
Yeah, there's some the Ghanaians are there. I
No,
think.
they're not. Nope. I checked specifically for Ghana, and Ghana is not there.
Not there.
Nope.
Hiya.
When I was looking at this, I thought Ghana or Senegal would have been on this list, and neither of them are. Neither is nobody from West Africa, interestingly enough, is on this list. If we're looking at Southern Africa, Zambia is there, Angola is there, Mozambique is there. If we're looking at Northern Africa, Morocco is there, Algeria is there, and Ethiopia is there. Interestingly enough, Egypt is there as well.
If you look at North Africa, all those two countries are
Yes,
there.
they're
Algeria,
there.
Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt.
Algeria, they're all there. That's about it. And that's the way the cookie crumbles for Africa
Okay.
on this list.
Let's release our own list of
Countries which you're
which
going to
kind of
allow.
countries which you're going
But
to
of
allow.
interest,
Who do you want?
but
Throw it in.
of interest is some of the criteria that they were also considering in allowing these people to enter their borders. The one which I found interesting was whether that particular country had also listed them among countries that could come into their country. But
So it's reciprocity.
yes, but also there were two others, three main ones. One, you needed to demonstrate that you had measures, not just to contain COVID, but it was a progressive measure that took into account things that could happen, should we say, unexpectedly.
Yeah.
They expected you to demonstrate that. Now that one,
And they're saying that Kenya could not demonstrate any of these things.
Kenya, we can talk about demonstrating it, of course.
Talk about it. You can
We
talk.
can talk.
Some people said that there's bile among those European capitals because of the kind of measures and, the expectation of treatment of nationalities from those countries within this part of the world. They expected some preferential treatment, and Kenyan government was like, no. Quarantine is quarantine for everybody.
And if France was one of those countries, and we also know that France is a head honcho in the European Union, so it's possible that they spread the word.
Nope. When you talk about quarantine applies to everybody.
Be you who from where?
Yes.
Well, actually, that
So they
decision was made by COVID.
They got,
Yeah, exactly,
they got kind
not
of pissed
Kenya.
off that, you know what, you guys are treating us like this. I'm kuji kwetu.
No more joiners.
Even as you're saying it, I'm thinking the vast majority of the population of people who live in this country, do you think they give a flying rat?
About
Hoot from hell.
Some people never even leave the location they come from.
It's true.
Forget going to the big town in their county. Location.
I think
You're
that-
so right. Because last year, I hosted somebody who was almost 50 years old, and it was the first time he was coming to Nairobi.
Nairobi is far.
So you can imagine, the majority of people, when you tell them that, they're like, eh?
First of all,
London.
they'd ask you, why would they want to go to Nairobi to do what exactly? So, some of these things, I think, the real fun or the real achievement is in feeling good that you've restricted people from coming to this wonderful country of yours.
I think also there is that the way the information was received in this part of the world is, oh my God, either we've received a stamp of approval or not. I mean, it's like we are expecting to be rewarded or something like that for our own behavior and treatment.
It
so,
is.
So when Kenya is not on the list, there are those that are saying, you see now, Kenya cannot be in the list of those countries that would be allowed to go into that hallowed part of the world. Come on, it's...
The thing is, we know our own system here, and we know how we are still trying to figure it out. Okay?
So just allow us.
So it's all right. Let us figure it out.
It is no different from how the others have also done the same.
Eric, it's different.
In parts of it.
Eric, it's very different.
As they know.
Not that they know. They have a plan. They're implementing it. This particular virus may be confusing the living daylights out of them, but you can see there's something they've planned. When they talk about quarantine, this one of ours. This hit and miss process.
But also they started with that hit and miss process.
Yes.
I saw a story the other day, a feature by, was it BBC or Sky, that, this journalist who has been in Italy from the very beginning, looking at Lombardy and the kind of decision making that they were making, they went through from initial confusion by politicians doing exactly what politicians do. Everybody passing on the back. Oh, no, the mayor should have made that decision. Oh, no, the regional leader should have made that. No, this one needed to come from Milan. The decision needed to come from the top. And what happened within that short period of time? That's when
exploded.
Exploded. You see? Now, during that, and even now, they still have the back and forth of exactly what are we doing? Are we reopening? Are we not? Who's managing? Who's in charge of this? They are also still running through the same.
Not
kind of
like
mindset.
us. Not like us.
Ours is very clear. We are closing the borders. We want money. We are stealing the donations. It's clear.
Eric, forget the border. That's an amorphous entity. We cannot even keep the people who are supposed to be within a certain area intact in that area. People come in and out, and we are supposed to ensure that nobody leaves. People leave and come in.
But at least we have measures in place.
Like which one?
Same. We have GSU, and those places are trying to
Just
control
because
movement of people.
GSU happened.
It's human nature.
After how long?
Look at those countries. So the UK has not been allowed to go into the Schengen countries, right? What did we see over the weekend? When they were allowed to go and bask in the summer sun.
They are basking in their own country.
Same. We are crisscrossing our own country.
Eric,
Do they have those measures in place? Yeah, we are going to have
do
people,
have those
we are going to
measures
have
in
controls,
place, and there are people.
we are going to be communicating.
Eric, the truth is there's a fundamental difference in the way they are managing the
They are
community
not
and the way we
superior
are.
than us, City.
You know, you're introducing words that I haven't even mentioned.
Yeah.
They are managing it. They are organized. They have better plans. They are confused about the virus like
That their-
everybody else is.
that their management of this is superior to ours.
No. Their management of this is better structured, not superior, better structured. We have the ability to do exactly what those people are doing, but we are not. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Stop self-hating.
Oh, good
But
Lord.
Eric,
Hey.
Don't.
Eric is in the building.
Love your
Yeah,
country,
this one-
City.
I love my country. It's a wonderful country.
Yes. Now, when you love your country that much, do not compare yourself to everybody else and put yourself lower than everybody
When I
else.
love my country, what should I do exactly, Eric?
True love.
You love your
If you
country
want
and
to
you say,
talk-
yes, this is
call
what
it
we're
out
doing.
when it's not working.
Call
or
it
it's not
out, say
working.
it's not working, but don't say to be a worse than. Also be
But
objective.
I
and
didn't
look
say
at
we
those
were
others.
worse. I said we were different.
Different. It's a different form of management.
You know, this worst thing, this self-hate, it's used introducing these adjectives here.
It could be what you're actually feeling, Eric.
Yes, I hadn't mentioned it. I was merely stating the reality of our situation as I see it.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't mean I don't love my country.
Yes. So you have not used the word different, but you've completely insinuated. This is the direction you're taking.
No. It is you as
So
interpreted
ours is
what I've
different.
said.
Ours is different from Tanzania.
Ours is differently
different.
confused.
Ours is different from Italy. Ours is different from everybody else in the world. Just like theirs is different from ours.
Actually, that's not true, Eric.
There
You
go
can't
now,
you can't
see
make
now.
a blanket statement and say, well, ours is different from. No, it's not.
course,
the
it's different.
disease is the same. The virus is the same. The strains differ from place to place, but it's
Response is what we are talking about.
yes, and I'm
CT.
saying that there is our response
it's different.
is totally higgledy-piggledy.
Is that not different from anybody else's?
Higgledy-piggledy. Yes. I dare say that higgledy-piggledy is quite different from anything
From
else
anything else that is
anywhere
same.
on the globe. So there you have it. Higgledy-piggledy has won the day. If you were doubting anything.
Okay, let's take a break. Let's look at the weather. Okay. When you come out of this short break, weather will be giving you an opportunity to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime. We want you to read the standard newspaper right from your mobile device. From your Safaricom mobile device, dial star 550 star 2 hash. That's star 550 star 2 hash. 20 shillings worth of your airtime will buy you the standard newspaper. And that's all you need. You don't need to download any app. You don't need to have any data bundles. You don't need to have any forms to sign up. That's it. So just do that. Star 550 star 2 hash. And then shortly, I'll ask you a question from the standard newspaper this morning. And you stand a chance to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime. Good morning. It's 17 minutes after 6 o'clock.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Clear skies in Nairobi this morning at 11 degrees. We will see highs of 24 today. Partly cloudy conditions will rule the day later on. Looking into Nyeri at 12 degrees is partly cloudy. Highs of 23 and lows of 11. Clear skies in Nakuru this morning at 12 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 11. Eldoret is clear this morning, but it will open up into an afternoon of rain with highs of 22. Kisumu likely to be a clear day throughout. Currently at 19 degrees. We'll see highs of 28. And in Kakamega this morning at 15 degrees. It's going to be a rainy afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 16. Let's take a look into Malindi, where it's already raining this morning and light showers are going to carry through most of the morning into partly cloudy conditions this afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 25. 24 degrees in Mombasa, clear skies, highs of 28 and lows of 24 with showers in the evening going well into Wednesday morning. Kampala is mostly cloudy this morning at 19 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 28. And Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 23, highs of 31 today. Take a look into Joburg, where it's a cool, crispy morning at 4 degrees. We'll see highs of 18 and lows of 3 today. Lagos is experiencing light showers this morning at 24 degrees. Thunderstorms are likely to rule most of the day. Highs of 27 and lows of 23. Taking a look into New York, where it's still Monday night at 23 degrees, clear skies, and wake up into a clear sky on Tuesday morning. In New York, it's clear skies at 16. In Paris, it's clear skies at 16 degrees. Cloudy conditions to follow later with highs of 25. And finally, for now in London at 14 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. Cloudy conditions will rule the day. Highs of 19 and lows of 13.
What's the meaning of that word? Higgledy-piggledy.
Higgledy-piggledy. I'm telling you, I love it.
This is
It's for the
your,
whole
your
day.
composition.
I know. It's a state of disorder, chaos, utter confusion. Things all over the place. So I would say that, higgledy-piggledy was perfect term to wrap up that conversation.
Not unique to Kenya.
You know that Eric is going to take this argument
So
to the
let's
end.
look at today's proverb. City,
Yes.
today's proverb.
Today's proverb. He who eats the food of others will have his food also eaten by others.
He who eats the food of others.
Will have his food also eaten by others.
Sounds like a good thing and a bad thing.
No, it sounds like a simple, straightforward thing. Whatever goes around comes around.
I'm looking at it from the good side of, he who shares.
Yes, will have others share with him.
Yeah. But also he who steals will have theirs
Other things stolen
from him. Both sides of the coin.
Oh, both sides of a coin.
Where is this from, this proverb?
This particular...
It's one of
proverb-
those
No, it is definitely one of those.
African proverb.
It's an African proverb.
Okay. For a chance to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime, dial star 550 star 2 hash on your Safaricom mobile, and for only 20 shillings worth of airtime, you will be able to read today's standard newspaper. Now, you want to win this 1,000 shillings worth of free airtime? Call in on 0719 012 600 and tell us, answer this question. So on page 3 of the Standard today, there is a headline, Laughter ends as comedian Kase dies a sad man. Laughter ends as comedian Kase dies a sad man. This is the story of a comedian called Kase, who was popular on TV. He was on the Churchill Show and also on other comedy shows on KBC. Had a very good stint, especially around the 2018. And then after that, things just went south for him. He ended up somewhere in Kino, where that's where he died on Sunday. After battling depression, he went into alcoholism. Basically just things went south. After having a nice, good stint around 2018, from that point on, he went off stage. He went into depression. He took on alcoholism, and now he was just doing small gigs in his neighborhood in Kino. And it said that he took some poisoned concoction of something, which is what ended up killing him. Now, the question today is, what is the name of this comedian? Not Kase. Kase is his stage name. What's his ID name? Majina ya M-Pesa. What is the Majina ya M-Pesa for this comedian? It's actually the first 3 words of this story. Page 3 of the Standard, Laughter ends as comedian Kase dies a sad man. 0719 012 600. Call now. Let's take a look at interesting stories in the paper this morning. You go first.
Why schools may not open or may not reopen in September is on the front page of the Standard. Safety first is something that has been consistent coming out of the mouth of CS, Professor George Makoha. But looking into the details of this story, he's given, indication that, technical colleges might be the ones to open in September, and then hinted that primary schools and secondary schools would not open until January 2021. The possibility of reopening schools in September appeared slim yesterday, even as the government gave an assurance that it was putting measures in place to ensure this was done as soon as possible. The Education CS ruled out reopening of schools when the coronavirus disease was still not under control. I quote, "I am today presenting 3 samples of child-friendly masks to be worn by school children in case we open in September. The cabinet will advise me on the prices and the quantity to buy, but the virus is behaving strangely," Magoha said. And he was at the Kenya Technical Training College in Nairobi. It is new and it continues to spike. We can't open. We can only do so when the disease stabilizes for 14 days. He added that he is not ready to lose the life of even one learner. The cabinet is expected to have a sitting today and will advise President Uhuru Kenyatta on whether to reopen schools in September or not. In May, public health officials had projected that the peak of COVID-19 in Kenya would be in August or September. Should this happen, then it is likely that learners may have to stay home for a little longer.
This story.
Just a second. During the daily Ministry of Health briefings at the time, the DG for Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, had said that with increased testing capacity, COVID-19 cases were likely to increase in the coming months. Since then, as high as 200 or more cases have been recorded on some days, and testing is ramped up.
Nothing new.
Nope. This is what we expected.
Nothing new at all. I mean, so, and I think it just goes back into that thing of if there was clear clarity on this is we have an extension of 30 days of everything being shut down. We are looking at we have been looking at September. Even the president said, "Go and review and come and tell me whether we can reopen it around September." Then it's clear that what the CS has been saying is September is dependent on other factors. It's not just a simple decision of switch on or switch off. It's dependent on other factors. And those are the same factors that he keeps talking about. But I think I still go back to that point where I've been saying if he had come up and said, these will be our indicators. This will help us to advise the president to call for the reopening. These will be our indicators. Where everybody knows if our numbers remain stable or if our numbers stop rising or if our numbers drop or all these other, everything else, these are going to be our irreducible minimums for us to reopen. Same way. It would be very clear and it would have a clear story anyway.
So you're saying he's not clear?
The reason why it keeps appearing as a headline in the papers every day, schools may not reopen, schools reopen. We may start with colleges.
We'll provide masks.
You know, Eric, I have to interject here. You must learn to love your leaders. And respect them.
You must have been expecting something like that. I didn't know it was going to come so early. And voila, here it is. Even before 7 o'clock.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's just go straight into traffic. It's 6:30. Okay. I'm still waiting for you to call in 0719-012-600 for a chance to win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. If you download the Standard newspaper, not download, but just dial *550*2#. Only that, *550*2#. It'll give you, send you a message. Click on that message, opens the link, and with 20 shillings, you'll read the Standard newspaper today. On page 3, you'll find a story with the headline, "Laughter Ends as Comedian Kase Dies a Sad Man." This is the story of a comedian whose stage name is Kase. And the question this morning is, what's the actual name of this comedian? Majina yake ya kitambulisho. What is the actual name of this comedian? His stage name is Kase, and the headline is "Laughter Ends as Comedian Kase Dies a Sad Man." Page 3 of the Standard this morning. Let's take a look at the traffic. This conversation continues.
Started off to a peaceful and slow start. We're looking around the city of Nairobi today and traffic has not started to jump out at us just yet. It's looking pretty good on the Thika Superhighway, getting into the CBD, right around the Pangani underpass where we expect the drama to be. Really not much this morning, as it were. Outer Ring, if we look on the other side of the city, is flowing quite smoothly and will not give us any problems at the moment. That's going to change, we know for a fact, as more and more people get on the roads. We'll look at what happens on Mombasa Road in a short while. The expressway that is being built is a sight for a lot of people to be able to look at as you go through traffic this morning, coming out of Westlands and then into the CBD. Not too much of a headache just now either. We'll keep our eyes on the situation and see what it looks like in a short bit and let you know where you can or cannot go, or at least should avoid, or where to be cautious. Spice FM KE is how you can get in touch with us on Twitter to let us know what you see as well, so that we can keep it moving this Tuesday morning.
Traffic.
to have any data bundles on your phone. You don't need to download and fill up any forms. You don't need to download any app. It's just *550*2# and you get to read the Standard newspaper. Let's go to Syokimau. Vincent is there. Good morning, Vincent.
Morning.
How are you, Vincent?
I'm fine today.
Would you like to try and win this 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime?
Yes, I do. I would.
All right. So this comedian's name is, stage name is Kase. The story is on page 3. Laughter ends as comedian Kase dies a sad man. What is the name of the comedian?
Joseph Musyoki Kivindu.
Joseph Musyoki Kivindu.
Yes.
Exactly. So just tell us a bit about the story about Joseph Musyoki Kivindu from what's been reported in the Standard.
Yeah, he was a comedian with Churchill. Churchill show. Yes. Then, according to the story, like he had an alcoholism issue. Yes.
All right. Well done, my brother Vincent. Congratulations. This 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime is yours. Speak to our producer, John, and enjoy the airtime.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Asante sana. Have a good one.
You too.
Remember, just dial *550*2# and you get to read the Standard newspaper. So, CT, page 2 of the Standard. I'm seeing you looking at that story. 100 million shillings.
That one.
Okay, what's the story?
There's a gentleman who worked as a civil servant. Let me be precise. A junior accountant at the Treasury. A junior accountant at the Treasury. And somehow, in a space of 3 years, between the year 2004 and 2007, he managed to amass, acquire or accumulate 100 million Kenya shillings. And why this has been brought into question is that his salary was 53,000 shillings. So, all the maths that was done, they couldn't see how this gentleman could get on with his life, and over that period of time, managed to save this amount of money. What business he could do that would enable him to actually have this money. Now, to understand, he owned plots all over Kenya.
All over Kenya?
Yes, I can read it for you. If
And
you
all
wish.
those plots are worth 100 million?
It's not just plots.
Cumulatively.
Oh, no, not just plots. He owned 2 apartments in Parkview Estate, a townhouse in Mugoya, and a prime plot in Mombasa. And then, now this is now where people sell themselves. He had 4 high-end vehicles. He had cash in Barclays Bank and Cooperative Bank. And then when they raided his house, they found 1.9 million shillings. Just ile amboga.
Lying there.
Ile amboga.
Ya kununua kiberiti.
Yes, na maziwa asubuhi.
1.9 M.
M, Taslim. Fari. Cash.
For you, necessities.
What?
So now,
Who's after him, though?
it's the anti-corruption, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. They suspect that he was part of the team that was involved in the Anglo leasing scandal, and that this 100 million was in turn a reward for his efforts and for his help.
What made them suspect, I wonder?
Usually, it's lifestyle. Your
No,
lifestyle.
I mean, what would make what? All right, maybe it's the wrong question. What would make them link him to specifically Anglo leasing and nothing else?
It's the period of transactions.
Yes.
If you look at during that period, what was happening at the National Treasury?
Yes.
That is
Anglo leasing was
Anglo
that.
leasing was
It
happening.
was a big thing happening with lots of money floating all over the place.
Yep.
Yes.
So 100 M and in cash and properties. So are they repossessing this money? Or are they taking that case of if you can't approve it, you lose it?
That is really it. Yes, because he has objected to the suit, of course, arguing that it is founded on a misrepresentation of the law. He said it's defective and misconceived, and amounts to abuse of court. That's what he claims. However,
Unfortunately.
the Anti-Corruption Commission doesn't agree with him.
So let's wait and hear which judge is here.
No. But Justice Mubingugi just dismissed his claims,
Oh, bas.
saying the matter involves stealing public funds and it is in public interest. Let the court determine if the properties should be forfeited to the state.
Okay.
He was directed by the judge to file his response.
Yeah. Let's don't give us frivolous, this is an abuse of court process.
That one was dismissed.
Can you now respond?
You've
How
been accused.
did you
Tell us.
acquire this wealth?
Just tell
That's
us.
the bottom line. Hii mambo ingine yote ngoja Sunday uende comedy show.
Yes, it might raise some laughter. You know, the why I was focused on this particular story, I don't know whether it is that the commission is actually making public what they are doing, but it appears that they have increased their tempo, they have upped their beat.
Completely, right?
Yes, they have.
Yeah,
And-
every
and
new day there's something.
There's something,
Yes,
new,
yes.
and you feel, oh, okay. And just the presentation of it, you would ask, okay, you know, if we were a country that had for the last century been accumulating wealth, and we were in the league of other first world countries where maybe your great-grandfather accumulated wealth, one might assume and look into the possibility of
Inherit.
you having inherited. Here.
in this country
Of
ours.
I think also the fact that they're communicating these things also makes a big difference. Previously, if they were working on something, you didn't really know. It was in the shadows, all right, until something busts through. But in this case, it seems like everything they do, they're letting the public know, well, you know what, we're doing this, and this has come out. They're sharing the information publicly, so it would be seen to be interesting. And so then, because of the fuel that you give the general public, it almost is like they're egging you on to go further. And so then, all right, another one. And it's not small things, eh?
There are cases that
100
they will.
million
They
and above.
remember, we were told by the CEO. There are cases they will not talk about.
Sure.
Because it might actually jeopardize the process.
Right.
But those that they can, they do. Yes. Because like this one is fairly straightforward.
Yeah, and
but
I
what-
think also they've received some encouragement to do this. I think they also took
The
they
wins
also-
that they get.
They said that yes, for sure, they've not done the best job in terms of communicating their wins or gains. You know, so I think
but
they've
what
seen,
it also tells you that people are whistleblowing.
yes, yeah.
You know, nani tumekuwa clerk na yeye.
Na mali niko na mali yako.
Yes. Na mke wake hafanyi kazi. Na watoto wake bado ni wadogo.
Kuna gari
4 kubwa.
kubwa.
Na mimi nimeenda kwao kwa matanga. Hiyo pesa haitoki kwao. People will whistle blow. Meaning I'm sitting here suffering.
And yet this
And-
guy.
and-
and I earn more than you.
Yeah, I'm actually your boss even.
Yeah.
I said, no.
And suddenly you're coming here, in fact, very rude.
No. Kabisa.
Yeah. Because you feel that you have got godfathers up there who connected you to this kind of cash because they used you to fuel kwenda huko. I'll tell on you.
You know what is strange? Those early whistleblowers really suffered. I know one of the whistleblowers at Central Bank. He headed that particular department that dealt with foreign exchange. And he put his foot down and said, no. He's an educated man who in that time had even acquired a master's. Kabsa? That guy, not only was he sacked, he was never employed again in this country.
Sad,
Never employed again.
the sad story of Munyankei. Died like that.
You know, that discourages people completely.
Yep.
Completely.
Yep.
You feel, do what? No, I'm not doing anything of that sort.
And that's why when we were talking to ESCC's Kagusha the other day, and Indu, you raised the issue of as we talk about punishing those who don't whistle blow, let's also talk about rewarding those that blow the whistle. And he agreed, and he said, yes, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So you need to have a lot of encouragement for those that would wish to come forth with information. Another interesting story before we do this break. Not interesting, though. It's disturbing. There's a boy in Homa Bay who is 15 years old. This boy, this morning, is in police custody because he's accused of killing an 11-year-old girl. How did this happen? They quarreled over grazing field. 15-year-old boy has been sent to go and graze a particular field, goes there and finds two girls who have also taken their livestock there. Boy starts quarreling and arguing with the girls. No, you guys are not supposed to have come here. I'm the one who was supposed to have come here. Picked up a blunt object, hit the girl, broke ribs, internal bleeding, girl dies. Boy is now in police custody because we are talking about killing. Murder. This is a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old. Now, of course, for the parent of the 11-year-old, they've lost the child.
Yeah.
Call it whatever you want to call it, they've lost the child. But also, the 15-year-old, as far as you can just go back, you cannot say that this 15-year-old went there and made a decision to kill an 11-year-old because of something that was a rational decision-making process. So what happens in such cases?
You know, what is clear, this wasn't premeditated.
Yeah.
And I don't think his intention was to kill her. Because if you read the story, the girl was with her sister.
Yeah.
And this boy was another young man. They argued about the grazing land. It was, this isn't your place. Why are your cows here? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they started arguing. And these guys had some wooden sticks. Well, sticks are made of wood. But they had wooden, objects. And they started chasing these girls. The older sister of Adhiambo's, I think, was able to run faster. So it's Adhiambo they
caught up
with. And her body was found in a maize plantation in the village 3 days later.
Yep.
She must have been hit, fell down,
bled somewhere,
Yes.
And these boys just took off.
They took off. I think when the girl collapsed, they must have just taken off.
They must have taken off in fear. It's a difficult one, and I think it will be a difficult one to decide.
It's a difficult one. No, I'm also looking at it from the point of once you take this boy into police custody now, and then now you start that process. What process is this boy going to go through? Are we actually saying that we want to forever treat this boy as a murderer? Whenever we talked about issues of young children who've gone to jail, in fact, some of them have even called us, and it's on the issue of sexual offenses. 15-year-old, same. 15-year-old was engaged in a sexual relationship with a 13-year-old. They were caught. Boy is taken to jail. Boy comes out 5 years later, 20 years old, and the experiences that he has gone through in that period.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
Horrendous. Life shattered. Now, look at a case like this. What is it that our justice system does, to deal with such cases? This is what we were talking about when we were speaking even with the judge the other day.
You'll want to send them to a remand home for children. How many do we have in the country?
There you go.
There's one in Eldoret, and there's one in Nairobi. The two in...
Then there are three. There's one in Mombasa.
Okay.
That's the remand home.
The three in the country. Yeah.
Now, even if there were four, even if there were five.
Actually, even the judge was telling us about one in Nakuru that caters for an entire region. So somebody like this boy would probably end up either in Eldoret or in Nakuru.
And
So you imagine.
whether you've stolen,
It's a very sad thing. This is what we're doing to our children. And we talk about, the rights of children and enjoying, accessing justice. This is it. This child needs to go through some system. There has to be some due process that's established to deal with such a case. But then does that due process factor in that this is a child?
Well, here is a real situation whereby you're looking at a case, okay, then you ask yourself, what is going to happen? But the truth of the matter is that with things as they currently stand, this boy will not be rehabilitated. If anything, if he's put through the system the way we know it now, he's going to come out, unfortunately, either quite hardened.
there is a children's court, is there not?
Yes, there is.
But thereafter,
This is what I'm saying. That's going through the system as it is. This boy will come out at whatever time. If things remain the way they are, he'll either come out more hardened, or he'll feel that he was, a major part of his life was taken away, and it will affect the way he will operate later.
No. Don't suppose. He will come out.
This is
hardened.
exactly what's
So
going to
it's
happen.
102. It's 102.
What's the name
So
of the
I
judge
mean,
again? I forget her name. The judges we spoke to. Judge of the Children's
Justice
Court.
Teresia
Yes.
Madeka.
Yes. Justice Madeka was telling us, look, from the very beginning, the police, the local police, and how they treated this child, All right. So the local police, their report is, we arrested the child is in custody.
Finish.
And this child is in custody
If you
with
think
adults.
about the way
Yes, for
they're
sure.
reporting that, we arrested, we have put the child in custody. That already tells you the kind of action
He is
and
a
how they handled
perpetrator.
him.
He's being treated like an adult.
There's
Yeah.
a crime. There's a perpetrator. He's been arrested. That's it.
Yep. And that's where it starts from. It starts from that point, how you actually deal with that child from the very beginning, from the police officers or the court users in the process, from the prosecution, from how the child is brought to court. Remember, a simple thing as you are going to be taken to court, first of all, take the child through what is it that you've done and this is what's going to happen to you. So that the child just knows, okay, so this is what I'm expecting. Those simple things, this child is going to get ruined.
Sad.
A very, very, very...
And he still has the guilt of having killed this girl.
Of course.
That was not his intention.
Of
He didn't
course.
intend to kill her, and you
It's
can
a
be
girl
sure
he
that they
knows.
knew each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They knew each other. So
It's a girl he knows. And everybody in that village is saying so and so, Ali was so and so. That's it. Whether you come out of prison, whenever you come out of prison, they'll be looking at you. Hey,
So we're talking about stigma.
yeah, this is it.
This is the height of it.
10 minutes to 7. When we speak to Kituo cha Sheria, we'll also raise this issue because the executive director of Kituo cha Sheria is also very, very, very keen on matters of children and children access to justice. So, gives us an opportunity to raise this issue because we'll be talking about the other 4 children who were killed by their mother. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are glad that you're tuned in. It's 8 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are looking at interesting stories covered in today's newspapers. In the room this morning is Eric Latif, Seiti Muga, and Nduoko.
So it seems that it's the season of impeachments. We're looking at county bosses wanting to be thrown out by the members of the county assembly in different cases. And yesterday there was drama untold in Ngilu's county. 3 lawyers representing Kitui Governor Charity Ngilu were yesterday assaulted even and forcefully ejected from county assembly grounds in a day of drama as political tensions between the two sides escalated. The advocates, Martin Olo, Morris Kimuli and Stanley Kilmer, who had gone to respond to summons requiring Ms. Ngilu to appear before the assembly, were roughed up and thrown out by the orderlies. Drama started when the lawyers gained access to the assembly grounds, but were intercepted as they walked towards Speaker George Ndotto's office. when Mr. Ndotto, whose office is on the first floor with a clear view of the main gates, saw the lawyers entering. He immediately ordered the sergeant of arms to evict them. The orderlies assaulted the lawyers, leaving Mr. Kimuli with back injuries. The lawyers reported the assault case at the Kitui police station. So it has become drama upon drama upon drama. The summons dated June the 23rd required the governor to appear before the assembly either in person or through a legal counsel yesterday to answer to the allegations contained in the impeachment motion. With the impeachment process having been halted by the High Court and the summons not officially withdrawn by the Speaker, Ngilu dispatched her legal team to protest alleged bias by Mr. Ndotto.
So, okay. County Assembly begins the process.
High Court stops it.
Ngilu goes to court. Ngilu obtains orders to stop the discussion of this matter by the County Assembly. Ngilu's lawyers want to come to the Assembly to discuss the matter because they're responding to a summons that had been issued before she had obtained these orders. So the Assembly is saying, now, surely,
What are you doing here?
you've already gotten orders to bar us from discussing this. So, mnakuja kufanya nini? Go. This is...
This gentleman, called Ndotto, was once a minister in the Moi government. So he's a man who's held a fairly high position. Being Speaker of the County Assembly, there are those who could, well, I am one of those who could look at it as maybe this is his comeback into politics. Because he's been silent for quite some time.
He's been away.
He's been away. Yes.
So, the matter of Kitui is basically gaining momentum. This is an indicator that it's actually picking up steam. Okay? Expect more to happen
And
in this
expect
particular
names
quest.
of people who are suspected to be sponsoring it to also come out.
Yeah, that too. Over the weekend, there was all this back and forth of whether Kalonzo, on what side is Kalonzo leaning. Remember, Kalonzo is touted as the Ukambani leader. He's also from this particular county.
Yes.
So he's expected to have some sway. The local leadership says Kalonzo is not involved in this. The MCAs are acting independently.
You see, one of the things that may seem improbable, but it is actually probable, a governor could do something that would earn the ire of his or her own MCAs. You don't necessarily need an outsider.
Yeah.
And to also assume that you only need an outsider for MCAs to gain momentum is a rather demeaning process of thought. They can do that quite well on their own.
Yeah.
Remember, the Kisumu MCAs got rid of their speaker. Not governor, speaker.
Speaker.
So, if they can get rid of the speaker, what makes you think they can't get rid of the governor?
And the MCAs are after one of the CECs, right?
Yes, exactly.
So it's possible for it. It's not improbable and impossible for MCAs to actually, of their own volition, seek to remove a governor.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
It happens. So there are very many other governors who are also on the edge, and we'll look at this as we talk about others in the next hour. Other governors, Nakuru's Lee Kinyanjui and his deputy Eric Korir, have issues. Yesterday they were addressing the press outside their county headquarters. We are seeing what's happening in Mvuria in Kwale, Wilbur Otichilo in Vihiga, Lee Kinyanjui in Nakuru, Trans Nzoia Patrick Kaemba, Sospito Ojamong in Busia, Wycliffe Wangamati in Bungoma.
There are 9.
Imagine. All of them, there's something cooking in their backyards.
This is true. We heard Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa over the weekend ask county assemblies to stop these impeachment motions. Kind of like, big uncle telling you, stop it now. Just leave them
it's
to do
more
their
like
job.
big uncle not thinking very hard before he speaks.
He said,
But
stop
sometimes
it. It's not good.
Remember,
Leave it.
this is not new. Even in the previous 5-year cycle, there was a period where impeachment just started cropping up. At some point, halfway through the tenure of both the executive and the assembly, then they start having this back and push and pull over very many things. The question, though, and I think maybe that's what even the CS Wamala should be trying to push for, and even the senators, is look at the threshold. Maybe we need to review how an impeachment process goes through the assembly itself to first of all see whether the speaker can determine it has met the threshold. If there's no threshold, why start that whole process, go through entire sittings,
Wasting your time and hours, wasting resources.
Yeah, in the Senate, and then it's looked at and said, look, you don't meet the threshold. That kind of conversation needs to happen. What is the threshold for impeaching? What's an impeachable offense? Gross violation of the Constitution, gross abuse of office.
This gross.
Now, let's define that gross. You see?
What constitutes it?
What constitutes gross? And where does it fall directly and squarely as the responsibility of the chief executive of the county so that we impeach this person? I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. We're coming to the top of the hour, City. Remind us today's proverb. Let's eat.
Yes, he who eats the food of others will have his food eaten by others. I'm adding as well.
As well.
The saying is an African proverb, but there are those who attribute it to the Swahili specifically.
It's like the hyena who comes for the lion's food and then the vulture goes for the hyenas.
Yes, yes.
Hey, okay. It's 7 o'clock. Good morning.
Nairobi, traffic is a bumper-to-bumper situation and is quite packed in coming in that general direction. You're probably going to see it building up a little bit on Mombasa Road as well. Between the SGR heading then towards General Motors, it's quite busy at this time of the morning. It shouldn't be too crazy today. I hope that it won't be. All right, let's then look at other parts of the city. Langata Road is building up slowly right now. If you hadn't gotten out, you're going to have to be a little bit patient because it will connect with the southern bypass, and then as you're heading into the CBD, for those who are trying to get to Ngong Road, you're going to have to be patient there too. All right, on Ngong Road as well, heading towards the City Mortuary roundabout, it's moving quite slowly, but it's moving all the same, getting you either going towards Hurlingham or then getting in towards Valley Road and going towards the CBD. Not too much of drama there. Coming out of Westlands past the 87 and then using the Red Hill bypass is an option, or getting to the Westlands roundabout and then on to University Way roundabout. Should be fine this morning. It doesn't look too crazy as yet. Should it, we'll let you know. You also let us know what you see in your neck of the woods. Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these...
From Kwale going to...
I thought Kwale had sorted out their matter.
Kwale... You know, you have to give it some time.
You would think it was sorted and then things erupt yet again.
Can be a false negative. And remember the intrigues of Kwale, where we're talking about the speaker and the speaker having a political...
And the political having an affiliation with the governor of Mombasa.
Yes. And the suspicion of having his own ambitions.
Yes. And being an ODM person. Yes.
All those things.
We also know that the fires haven't quite died down in Kirinyaga, and we know that the MCA, the County Assembly lawyer Ndegwa, is going back to appeal this decision. Today is Tuesday, right? Yeah, so he's doing that today. And so they're not taking this lying down either.
Yep.
Ndegwa is also the same person who actually stood brief for Wambora.
For Wambora.
And there he met with success.
Yep.
But
Let's
he's a fairly
see.
eloquent chap.
He's not one to give up, is he?
No.
Quite
No.
eloquent, right?
No, not only eloquent, he's clear and convincing. Seems to know what he's talking about and talks about it convincingly and clearly.
Right.
And quotes chapters that we've never even heard of.
But they must exist.
No, they do exist.
Yes.
It's
It's just that
I am
you
the
didn't
one
know
heard
that
of
they
them.
could have been used for reference.
No.
Yeah.
Start from the basic. I didn't
They-
know
they
that they
existed.
Yes.
Voila.
Didn't know.
Okay. It seems that Starehe MP Charles Njagwa Kanye may have gotten himself into a little bit of a pickle. He's been questioned over claims of incitement at the new Karioko market. He's done this before, no? But all right.
It has been claimed that
He has done
that
this before. He's been in the paper for this kind. He's been in the news for this kind of thing in
What
the past.
kind of thing?
All right. So what has happened is that yesterday he was questioned by police for hours on allegations that he incited his supporters to forcibly occupy stalls at the newly constructed Mwariro market in Karioko. The two-story market with 350 stalls was built by the national government through World Bank funding and is ready for occupation. Nairobi area police boss Philip Ndolo told the nation that the MP on Friday last week mobilized over 200 people at the market to cause chaos and demand ownership of the stalls. What he did was wrong because the market was built by the national government. Not a single cent from the Starehe CDF kitty was spent. Therefore, he cannot purport to have the right to share out the stalls. Besides, it was wrong for him to gather a crowd during the time of COVID-19. So he made many mistakes. According to intelligence reports, some politicians have sold the stalls to their supporters at a fee of 200,000 shillings each.
Now, the bus.
Ahead of the planned government allocation in a scheme aimed at enabling them to rent out the stalls to
Crux of
needy
the matter.
traders.
This is it.
When
When such a huge market comes up, like Mwariro Market, now I've seen the Westlands Market is also almost getting to completion. It's been painted, it's huge. You don't expect that some people are just sitting there expecting, okay, so it's going to be a very free and fair process in terms of allocation of stalls. The people who were trading here before and were
Will have
moved
first priority.
will get first priority, and therefore they'll be allowed to. Of course not. Now, we also know that the goons who operate these kind of things end up in politics. So, it's nothing new to hear that goons have actually taken over this Mwariro market even before it has been reopened, allocated themselves spaces, and they are selling those spaces. Business. According to them, this is business. Now, this intelligence report, instead of going for an MP like Jaguar, who is saying, all right, guys, come, because you
Take
can
up.
also take up these slots, we do not know his clear intentions, whether he's among those who, these are rival wars, it's a rivalry battles between the big owners of the big slots. But once you had that intelligence, why not just go ahead and say, okay, clearly, this is how we are going to do it. This is who we identified initially as the beneficiaries of these slots. This is how we are going to allocate the slots. It's either going to be open bidding or whatever. People are going to get. What's the procedure of allocating stalls in this new market? It's got to be very clear. When you allow politics to come in, you'll have these kind of things. And putting Jaguar in, spending a night in custody and coming out doesn't change.
wasn't necessary. You
Doesn't
think?
change any. It
You
does
actually
not
get the
change.
impression that somebody must have ensured that he spent that night.
Yeah,
in jail.
tutakufundisha lesson. The people
He's saying,
the
he's
people he was
insisting.
fighting when he was going to Mwariro Market. He was not going there because this thing has taken long, and therefore he'd have used other channels of advocating for the people.
He was going there because he said the allocation, it seemed already, was not fair. And he said
knows
this
who-
allocation must be fair.
and he knows who's
So he went
behind
to
it.
make a little bit of noise, which many would have seen was within his purview to do. Said, look, these politics that you're throwing into this allocation, we won't allow. Same thing when he said that,
I've got to come out here and say I
people
also
from other
do not
nationalities should not come and
trust, I don't trust
roast maize
his intention
in Gikomba.
100% that he was going
That's
to.
what he said.
He did.
That what?
He was previously when we saw that he was being targeted, or no, okay, let's not use the word targeted, when he was being called out for incitement, basically saying that people of other nationalities should not come into the country and do petty jobs that Kenyans actually would be able to do. This was the last time that we saw that he was called out on
Did
an
the
issue such as
traders
this.
who were in Kikomba market,
Gikomba, yes.
did they protest? Did they have an issue with these so-called foreigners?
Well,
At that point, no.
no.
They've been operating there for
They've been living
for a while.
in harmony.
Decades.
On-
It's not
harmony.
something we started yesterday.
No.
No.
On that particular issue, he was called out, and there was a huge amplification of what he was saying and the implications it would have on EAC and everything else. He was called out, and he went quiet on that. However, the issue of Gikomba market also is another one that we need to, also needs to be
You know,
investigated.
the real issue there isn't foreigners. But in this particular case, this Merino market, the issues have come out. The real issue is that people are selling stalls.
Yep. This is it.
And these
People
are the kind of
selling
things that
stalls.
stay in one person's hand for generations. We saw the same with the county houses, whereby you have county houses and county units that stay in one name forever, and it's sold. You can have you have members of the county or people who work for the county owning these units and owning several units. It's the same thing that you see here.
Actually, it's what you call a multi-tiered tenancy. The county thinks they're the ones who own the property.
Yeah.
But over the years, you will find that the person who actually collects money from that tenancy for their own use, the really smart ones ensure that it's a sub-tenancy. And given the area where that particular property will be, if let's say you're paying the council 5,000 shillings, they'll charge 20.
Yeah.
Yes.
Knowing very well that they can give the council or the county their
Their
5,000.
They'll never.
keep the-
They will
they
always
keep the
get their
rest.
5,000.
And they also know that those houses are in high demand.
Of interest, as you said correctly, some of those tenancies, ideally, when you give up a house, there's a waiting
List.
there's a list of people who had applied for tenancy.
Yep.
Rarely happens. That tenancy is sold.
Yep.
It's the same thing that's happening with these markets. Same kind of thing. When you see someone saying 200,000 shillings for you to get yourself a spot in this stall, it's because he's basically just leasing it out. He's found his way into being the official. On official paper, he's the one who's actually has that stall. But then, he subleases. And it's the same ukora that happens even in Gikomba market. Every year you must have several fires at Gikomba. We had one, was it earlier this week or late last week? Big fire destroys.
Not
you have
every year.
You have.
I
At
think you have a
least-
couple
at
of
least
times a year
twice a
in a
year.
year, right? Because we just had we had a conversation about the fires in Gikomba not too long ago, and then
Yep.
yet another one happened last week. But I got to ask myself, all right, so you burn it down and then they
No,
build
it's,
it
it's
up.
not all of it.
I understand.
Please understand. It's not
Yeah,
the whole
you're
of
burning
the
sections of
market.
it down. You're burning sections of it down time after time after time. And I understand that there's a message that's being sent. It's clear because come on. Even if somebody left, something on, it's not possible for
No,
you to burn.
sometimes
that.
it's rivalries.
I understand, but this message that is being passed, is it not possible to have another way?
Of course, it is possible. Okay. The moment this entire system got corrupted to the point where it is the cartels who have the last say, not the county. It started with the council. The council didn't have a say. There may be one, you see, all those markets have a market supervisor and a few assistants who work for the county. Okay? They are at the heart of this cartel. Because one, they're the ones who actually know who the various vendors and who owns. They know these people.
And what they want is money.
Well, at
Abi?
the end of the day,
What they want is money. Is it not money?
even if you sell your stall or you lease your stall, you must give them a cut. So they run a parallel business with the county.
Yep.
I got it. So now when you burn it down, see, nobody's getting anything.
No, somebody
No.
somewhere.
No. That is part of the business. All right? For you to continue having a proper hold on this place, you keep disrupting it all the time.
So you go back to factory settings.
Yep.
Start from the
They
beginning.
don't lose. The people who engineer the fires don't end up losing. It's you, the traders, who are caught up in this, who end up losing. For them, that is a tool of maintaining control of this place.
As my auntie would say, it's wickedness.
Complete
It's
and
wickedness.
absolute wickedness.
Undiluted.
Complete.
Wickedness.
And when you see it running for a long time without any kind of action being taken, also know that they've got godfathers,
How do you think
political godfathers.
just think of the number of people who are colluding in this one thing.
Yeah,
Because you would
for
have
real,
expected
man.
everything. People would have been arrested. This would have happened.
Yeah, they know who
Nothing
started the
ever-
fire.
Of course they do.
And then investigations
Nothing-
are taking place. All right, okay. Then people build up their stalls, they start business, they continue for another 4 or 5 months. Before you know it, there's
And
smoke.
they're very sudden. They come and they do small harambes to
Yeah.
help the traders,
Iron
because you
sheets
see
here
our
and there.
small traders are really suffering. You see the Juakali sector, the informal trade. These people really suffer.
You know, to understand this side, this competing business that the counties or the councils have had for a long time. Remember when KRA were given the mandate to collect revenue? One of the things that they complained about first, they said, yeah, some of these bus terminals. Goodness gracious me. What goes on here is absolutely crazy. I mean, we have our people, and then the other people also collecting money.
Several layers of tax collection.
And those guys are actually better organized.
They know very well, and everybody who operates there knows how much you need to pay, when you need to pay.
They know. They know.
The
And
proper
who you-
structures are
and
in
who
place.
you need to pay.
Yeah. And if you default, what you need to do. It's very clear. Everything that you ought to do is very clear and very well communicated. See, this is what happens in a society that allows thugs to govern it.
Essentially, what happens is you then have should we say, a competing or an alternate system of government. Why do you think it is that there are certain parts of this country where if you want electricity, you don't go to KPLC? There's somebody in the neighborhood whom you talk to.
Yeah.
And who doesn't work for KPLC?
There's a power person.
Yeah.
The power person. That person. Maji, that
That
person.
one.
Why? Because again,
Security.
that person.
Yeah.
And they charge you for it on a daily basis, something like 5 bob, 10 bob. But you're definitely secure. You can walk at any hour,
you'll
nothing
be
will happen
fine.
to you. Nothing.
Until the day you don't pay.
Or you beat your wife and she goes to complain.
You'll be quenished.
No, they'll cane you.
Nairobi will enjoy sunny conditions today, currently at 12 degrees. We'll see a high of 24 and lows of 11 today. Nyeri, the partly cloudy conditions at 13 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 12. Nakuru at 24 degrees, the high today is mostly sunny. And in Eldoret, with clear skies at 11 degrees, it'll be a rainy afternoon with highs of 18 degrees in Kisumu and mostly cloudy today, highs of 28. Kakamega will have showers in the afternoon with highs of 26. It's currently partly cloudy at 16 degrees. In Malindi, it's mostly cloudy at 26, going into an afternoon of rain with highs of 28. Mostly cloudy in Mombasa at 24 degrees. The rain that was in Malindi takes over in Mombasa this afternoon. Kampala at 19 degrees is mostly cloudy. 27 degrees the high with partly cloudy conditions to take through most of the afternoon. Dar es Salaam is foggy this morning and it's quite shallow at 23 degrees. We'll see partly cloudy conditions following later with highs of 31 and lows of 22. Looking at Joburg, where it's clear skies with a few clouds today, sunny conditions in the afternoon. Currently at 4 degrees, we'll see highs of 17 and lows of 3. And finally, for now in Lagos, light thunderstorms and rain throughout most of the day today. It's overcast, it's rainy, it's wet. Currently at 24 degrees, we'll see highs of 27 and lows of 23.
City, when KQ IPO was released in the 90s, how many shares did you buy? I'm sure you were there.
I can't
And you were
remember.
like, hey, Kenya Airways, hii tutanunua.
I can't remember. You know, Kenya Airways was doing well, Chief. You know, what was amazing about Kenya Airways at that particular point in time, other airlines, even in Europe, were failing.
Yep.
Kenya Airways was going from strength to strength to strength. Even if you look at me, the way you're looking at me, my sister,
You can see the strength.
not only that, the airline of the place where she was born,
I'll leave that thing, I beg. I'm just looking at you. I'm waiting for you to finish telling your story. You now want to bring Kasala into the story. What's wrong with you? City, continue. What
So
you're-
there were those that were making those decisions, looking at it, looking at the fundamentals of the organization.
oh no,
Kina, you guys.
believe me,
Though Kina,
it-
us guys
it
who are
was-
young people were thinking, Ati Kenya Airways, Nikona 10,000 and nunua shares. Put 10,000
it was
there,
worth
expecting that you're going
buying.
to be flying
It
for
was
free.
worth buying. Then, me, where I started getting a bit surprised, they would announce they have made this profit, they have made this profit. Then they'd explain certain things there, board meeting, etc. I never attended those public things. So I said, okay. That bit where they indicate how much I'm getting.
you like?
See? I said, hey.
Zero.
The part you like, they didn't bring.
No,
Why?
I didn't see. You don't buy shares. You know, a chair you buy, you sit on it, so you know what you're doing with it. Stool, you put things on it, you know. This one, you give it time, it's supposed to make you money. A year has gone by too. After the second day, I realized this thing is not making sense.
I'm not liking it so much.
I went and talked to my broker. She explained to me how the thing worked, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay, how does selling the shares work?
I'm not doing it again.
Said, you know, the value had gone up kidogo. Said, you sure want to sell? I said, me, I'm selling. Said, what else are you selling? I pointed to two other shares. Said, sell that one also. Said, you're selling? I said, please.
Sell, please.
Please, I'm selling.
Just sell. Yes, because I'm not seeing where these things are going. Hey, man, Kumbe was right. There are those who would argue that my thinking there was very rudimentary, but their rudimentary helped me. Because people who had kept shares for a longer time, I cannot mention names, they lost money because the value
The
actually
value
dipped.
just dipped,
It dipped.
and the excitement that was happening at that time, you're buying Kenya Airways shares, the way it's packaged and all. I mean,
Same happened with the Safaricom. For the longest time, those shares just kept dipping. So even what you bought them at, it got a point where they were around 6/10 of what you had paid.
6/10 specifically.
No, I didn't buy. Because banks were even offering you money to buy.
Because it was going to be the next boom.
Yeah, but by that
Yeah.
time I'd become a bit afraid of shares. I'd looked, I'd seen, no. Now,
you had participated in Mumias as well before that, and Kengen.
I had relatives who had bought Kengen and Mumias. And I told them that, these things may accompany firewood soon because in terms of real value, I am not seeing. But at least my parents who had bought shares and things like Mumias sold. After a while, I advised them, I said, sell these things. Well, they can still be bought. Please sell. And they did sell. And later when things went sort of like belly up, they said, hey, how did you know? I said, well, they had said they were going to produce power because they were alcohol you can get from from sugar cane. I didn't hear of where they were powering, meaning there was something. This alcohol was supposed, among other things, to help generate power so that I said, no, something isn't adding up. Nothing. I mean, I wasn't one of those analytical people who understand shares. I didn't. No, it's not adding. And because it wasn't adding up, it was really that simple. Eric, right now, forget COVID. If somebody had asked me, should I buy shares, I would tell you go and buy land. It's the one thing, it's finite. And in this country, the value will keep going up.
Keeps going up.
And don't buy land where there's development. Go far away from development and then buy land there. But more so ask where development is heading towards, then buy. That's why Kangundo Road is full. It was just some remote place. In fact, if you lived there, people knew exactly that you live in Machakos.
Don't just stop that advice and go buy land. There's a whole issue of trying to trace back on the true ownership of the land that you're buying.
You see, if you must invest,
And
it is a surer investment then these are the funny things
Then
that people
funny
keep
things
telling
of
you to buy.
shares.
Yes, I agree with you because
So you,
even this issue of buying land, I have money to lose money buying land through a circle which is reputable.
and then
So it turned out they hadn't actually fully paid the owner of the land. So the owner of the land just kept the deposit.
he's buying anything. You buy land, buy. A lot of work. It's not just get up and follow the buzz.
No.
Because now people are going to buy land here, go and buy. Oh,
No,
bypass,
no,
go
no,
and buy.
No,
my
no,
friend.
No.
You get yourself your fingers burnt.
And this one about the group selling,
Be
you're
very
better
careful.
off talking to someone individually. And even then, cross check.
Many times. Be very, very careful. So now with your plans on, the whole issue of KQ and all, I need you to sit back, relax, familiarize yourself with the cabin, because we'll be taking off shortly. Shortly, Kenya Airways will no longer be private. It's going to head back into government hands, because a proposed law seeks to establish an aviation council to oversee creation of a corporation that will run the national carrier. This is nationalization of Kenya Airways again. The House Transport Committee has recommended last year that the government pushes out a consortium of local banks and its longtime partner, KLM, and other shareholders. The Pokot South MP, David Kosing, who was the chair of the committee, had recommended the nationalization of Kenya Airways after several attempts to revive it had failed. So the National Aviation Management Bill 2020 seeks to establish the National Civil Aviation Council that will oversee the creation of a new outfit, which is going to be called the Kenya Aviation Corporation, which will in turn run Kenya Airways. Get that?
I get it.
National Civil Aviation Council, Kenya Aviation Corporation, Kenya Airways. Basically, we are heading back into the days before, what year was it? 96, 97? Yeah. Back to nationalization of Kenya Airways. And arguments have been there back and forth on this particular issue. Is it the best route to take to bring the aviation back to being state-run and state-managed? Then there are those that say, look at Ethiopia and the kind of things that Ethiopia is able to do. Look at Qatar, look at Emirates and what they're doing. It's because they've got government backing.
Absolutely.
And government backing is helping them to expand. Look at Rwanda and the kind of inroad that Rwanda is making. It's because they've got government backing. But also, there is government determination and focus and will to make it work. Do we have the same in Kenya?
Well, I think it's it comes from an understanding of what, for example, a national asset like that is able to do for your country. And if you look at some of the names that you've mentioned, Emirates, Qatar, Rwanda even, realizing that when you call that name, it is synonymous with country. And they realize the importance. They've understood just what it can do for them. And coming from that understanding, then the action, again, is a byproduct of the thought. So the things that they would do thereafter is an understanding of what this asset could do for a country. So then taking that and moving it a step forward and making sure that everything you do thereafter, regardless of what the prevailing circumstances would be to protect that asset, would be to protect that.
Please understand that Kenya Airways has up to now been owned 48.9% by the government, which is essentially 49%.
Yep.
Majority shareholder. KLM only owned 4.7%. I mean 7.8%.
And then the rest.
Yes, the rest.
So it's us guys.
The government had what you call controlling shares. So if you're talking about who had the biggest say in Kenya Airways, it's the government.
Government does have.
Biggest say.
So why do they suddenly want to nationalize it? The reason why you privatize things is because it has long been proved that there are certain sectors that you are best leaving in the private hands and leaving in the hands of people who actually know how those things are done. And they also argue that it is not the government's business to do business. It is the government's business to provide service.
You see, so the 38.1% is owned by 10 local banks. How did these 10 local banks end up with this? It's because they had lent Kenya Airways money, and one way of sorting out this debt was giving them shares.
You take equity.
Right? So it's equity. Let's look at the proposed composition of this corporation that's going to be running Kenya Airways. Okay? The corporation will oversee and, where applicable, manage the operations of the group, including establishing centralized functions to be shared by the group, such as promoting and development of the Kenya aviation sector and advising the government, blah, 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 blah. The board of directors of this corporation will comprise a chairperson appointed by the president, the attorney general, the cabinet secretary for national treasury, transport principal secretary, the chief executive officer of Kenya Airways, the Kenya Airports Authority, and the 4 independent non-executive board members appointed by the cabinet secretary. Are you hearing any business competence on this? So now that's when you start asking yourself, all right, so if you say that the national carrier is going to be run by the politicos, these are all political appointees, cabinet secretary, the president appoints the chairperson, the president is the one who has appointed the attorney general, the president is the one who has appointed the CS for the treasury, the president is the one who has appointed the principal secretary in charge of transport, the president is the one who has appointed, has influenced the appointment of the CEO of Kenya Airways, of the Kenya Airports Authority.
Kenya Airports Authority is a government parastatal.
And the cabinet secretary is the one who's appointing the independent executive board members. Basically, what you're saying is that the presidency is running Kenya Airways. These are all going to be political appointees that will be running the national
Which
carrier.
actually brings me to ask
Does
the question,
it make sense?
who is actually going to own the airline?
The taxpayer.
Really, 100%?
It's a national corporation. It's like it's going to be
it's going to be like National Bank.
Like Kenya Airports Authority or Kenya Ports.
You know the beauty of Kenya Ports and Kenya Airport Authority?
Monopolies.
Yes.
And yet they...
Yes. Yes.
There'll be monopolies. Now here we are talking about this, and it's not a monopoly. It's going to be competing for the same skies, the way it's been competing for expansion in the region with Ethiopian. Political will is very important here. If you don't have it, I don't know. I see very many arguments back and forth on this.
You know, talking about political will, and you talked of Qatar and Emirates. The reason why they're successful is because of that. But the political will here understands business. And lets business people run those airlines.
About 3 weeks ago, there was a huge report that was done specifically for Qatar. And the gentleman at the seat, just exactly what you said, been appointed by government as the vice president for the airline, sat down and talked about what they intend to do, what they'd already put in place, and what they intend to do for the next 2-3 quarters, yearly quarters. And he spoke as a man who knew that he had government backing. It was clear to him what the government had already said you can go ahead and do.
Yep.
So he spoke with an authority, not just for a business, but speaking, we as Qatar, not we as Qatar Airways, we as Qatar
the
know what
people
we
of
are
Qatar.
using this airline to be able to achieve. So just like what you're saying, now, if there's no understanding, there's no interest, there's no will. Forget about it. You can talk about this until you're blue in the face.
My big doubt here is on the political will of these political appointees who are going to run Kenya Airways actually thinking about the bigger good.
The bigger picture.
The bigger picture, and not self-interest in terms of business. How can we buy oil? How can we hedge? How can we buy new aircraft? How can we actually lease this aircraft to Kenya Airways? How can we do business with Kenya Airways and make the money?
And the lack
How
of
can we
this,
take it
the
down
lack
and
of this is what
require
has
more
been
money?
the downfall
This is it.
of many an airline on this continent. You talked about, you almost talked about Nigeria a few minutes ago. Same thing. South African Airlines
It's gone.
done. Same thing. And we can pick 2 or 3 around the
It
continent
isn't the
because
first
of the
time, by
same
way.
thing.
South African Airlines, at that time Kenya Airways was coming up, had also performed that act of going down.
Yeah.
Yes, then it was resuscitated. And we're back there again.
This one is...
What I've always found strange is why you want to interfere with a formula instead of tweaking it to make it better. You want to overhaul a formula that has proved to be working, and you want to take us back to the formula that had not worked. And that is why we had brought in the new formula.
And you're not tweaking that formula that did not work before, because it's okay. You can say, let's take it back to, let's nationalize it, but also ensure that by nationalizing, we are protecting and doing everything for the good of the country. It has serious implications to, as a national carrier. There's what it represents as a national carrier. And then as a business, there's what it represents. As holding influence over this region, there's what it represents. Now, if we're looking at it politically from that angle and then saying, now let's bring in the business people to run it so that our political policy is complementing the business policy, fine. This particular case, Kenya, 26 minutes to 8.
Things are looking good on the southern bypass today. We know that there's a little bit of traffic on Langata Road today already. Coming in from the southern bypass as you float smoothly towards and away from Mombasa Road. You might get into some traffic on Langata Road, but you'll be fine. It won't be too terrible. Looks like a good Tuesday today. Traffic from on Thika Muranga Highway today is actually very, it's for some reason quite clogged. We don't know what exactly is going on there, but hoping that opens up in a very short while. Mombasa Road is giving off the normal vibes that we expect to see between the SGR and General Motors. After that, it's easy street, literally. So not too much to report at the moment. If it does go higgly-piggly, we'll be sure to let you know. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Okay, 25 to 8. It's a situation in Kenya's biggest conversation. Ndu, it's Kazim Tani.
Got it.
All right? Kazim Tani is the current one. The current Ruto government. Kazim Tani was
But it's also Vijana.
Spice up your life.
That's why I get confused.
The Vijana. Now, the Kazim Tani is targeting to hit 260.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Them against the effects of coronavirus. The first phase of the project monitors
Mornings done right. 94.
Said that this supervised national hygiene program, which is where now the Vijana come and sweep streets and unclog drainages and all, is gonna be rolled out now countrywide. 260,000 youth are going to benefit from this.
This is a good thing.
On paper.
There had to be something. Yeah, we know.
Very, very good thing.
Somebody would have an opportunity to work on a regular basis.
Until you now start hearing, how did those jobs go and what kind of hygiene programs were undertaken. Start auditing the entire program and wondering, so how many youth? 260,000 youth. What did they do exactly? Do we have cleaner streets? Do we have, clearer drainages? What exactly did they do over that period of time? How much money was spent? Now, that is where you're going to have those issues.
I don't know why we're even bothering, because if we look at the organization of what we're saying and how it was structured, right? We have an organization in this country called National Youth Service.
Yep.
Not only do they have young people who can do this work you're talking about, but they're trained. And when they are given such a mandate, you see the results. For instance, I noticed that with government parastatals, it was decided that those who are going to be manning the gate is not. I thought, excellent. Let's get rid of this nonsense once and for all of these really emaciated, hungry-looking guards that you always see. No, but am I exaggerating, Eric? The guy opens the gate, you think it's going to collapse. Okay?
Because it's poorly paid, because this company went and bid to provide services to this corporation.
Yes.
And there was a lot of corruption, and how much they end up getting.
He never gets paid a full salary.
Yep.
He always gets it in installments
Yep.
and supposed to survive. So he probably has a second job. So he comes to this other job to sleep.
He's tired.
All I'm saying is this. That made a lot of sense to me. For the longest time, bridges, things like that, the national youth were mobilized to help in these things. Now, instead of just kazi kwa vijana and giving them ad hoc work, is it not possible for young people to have been organized so that you actually understand specifically what they're supposed to do at what time. Because it's not as though the national youth, whether they're in Gilgil or whether they're in Ruaraka, wherever they are, it's not as though they get to sort of like clean roads. You know, if you sort of like excavate a gutter or a water drainage, you're not going to be doing it every day.
There you go. Mm-mm.
You do it once and then you go somewhere else. So over a period of time, one ought to see the full results of what it is that they have done.
Yeah.
Your question is valid. What do you see? You cut grass. The county government have people who work under the Department of what you call environment who cut grass.
Yep.
And these days, you don't need a slasher. They've got this mowing machine which you sort of like lean around your neck. And
And it
it's,
just hold it.
yes, exactly. Has a blade that rotates. And it moves exactly the sound it
effects
makes.
are gold.
Exactly the way as Erica says. Very onomatopoeic.
I know.
And when it comes to the highways, the Kenya National Highways Authority is doing the same
They do the same.
on the highways.
And they tend to do a good job.
Yeah. So what is this that you're going to have 260,000 youth doing? Cutting grass, collecting garbage.
Grass which is already being cut.
Just give those people cash directly then if you want. If
Why
that's what
didn't you
wanted.
say even
Just-
growing grass where there's no grass?
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense to me.
It's because you do not want to have a direct audit of this.
Accountability is an issue here.
You're not going to say that
Yeah.
this is what we did. If we went directly into that cash transfer and said 260,000 youth are going to receive cash directly, give it to them. You will have clear records of
Don't
money,
pretend that they're cutting grass.
money
Just give them money.
sent
Give them.
to youth, so and so, mobile number, this and the other.
For whatever reason, really is not
Yeah,
the issue.
it went. Now we'll have these
They're
guys.
unemployed. They are being given assistance.
Yes.
Just give them.
Give them the money. They are not going to receive how much they're supposed to be receiving. We heard a testimony from one of them here saying, I worked,
I received less.
I received less. It's a conduit for just stealing people's money.
Stealing money.
Eric, this matter of Kenya Airways, I'd like us to discuss it perhaps more later. Yeah, because nationalization is necessary sometimes. And the industries that it is actually in the interest of the government because they are part of what you may call your national security.
Yeah.
But there are others that really you have to really stretch your explanation to explain why it is you would want to nationalize it. However,
Like an airline.
yes, like
Pride and everything on what you're doing, your influence, exerting your influence around the region. If you look at the kind of what is it that Ethiopian is able to do, or what is it that Qatar is able to do? When Qatar is going and saying, Qatar is flying across Africa and interconnecting, what does it do? It takes people through that airport in Doha. Emirates is taking people through that airport. So business in the airport, right?
Eric, but Kenya Airways has managed to do that without it being nationalized.
Yes.
I mean, if you're talking about Oliver Tambo Airport, Nairobi, JKIA, man, this airport is busy.
It's busy.
And Kenya Airways
And remember,
has
there was a program about that. There was actually a plan
Yes.
saying, look, the way we're going to make sure that we make Nairobi a hub is by ensuring that Kenya Airways can fly around the continent, every other part of the continent. Come to KQ, come to Nairobi, and you can go to any part of Africa.
Eric,
Bring them through here to other parts of the world.
It already does that.
It was a program. Now it
Maybe-
started collapsing because of all these kind of things that you say, Project Mawingu, I don't know what. So you're looking at taking traders out of China, bringing them through a huge aircraft to Nairobi at JKIA, and then taking their cargo to the parts of the world in Central Africa, in West Africa. You're using a small plane that cannot carry that cargo.
But we didn't buy
there's-
a sufficient cargo planes.
And that's the thing. The
Ethiopian
strategy,
did.
the strategy is where now you start questioning. This Project Mawingu, yes, Project Mawingu, you bought Embraers. Embraers, long-haul flights, they're going to go into Central Africa,
Did
West
we buy
Africa.
Embraers?
Well, we have
Do we
Embraers.
even own them?
We actually bought some. And then we list some.
Least
couple
some.
of.
Yep.
So to you, it doesn't make sense to nationalize this thing?
It makes absolutely no sense
At all.
whatsoever.
To nationalize Kenya Airways?
No. In this country,
All right, so Kenya
What
Airways
I-
is not
what-
doing well right now.
what you
And the
need
only thing
is
that is
heavy
left-
government presence, but to nationalize it completely.
So should it get more...
So that it stop heavy government.
Should
Like
it
all
get-
these government parastatals.
Should it get more money from government? It has received this sort of shots in the arm from the government every year. It keeps getting money from government, keeps getting money
and where
from
does the money
government,
go to, Eric?
down the drain. But
Funny
it-
procurements, fuel, God knows
That's the
what,
problem.
God knows
up
what.
in the air.
Look, without a system of which you go back to, without a system of checks and balances and accountability, you can talk until you're blue in the face and talk about getting shots in the arm from the government, this, that, or the other thing. But if it is the same individuals, we're talking about top-heavy government presence in the same government where you have an issue when it comes to accountability, and then you want this same national asset or same national carrier then to be able to carry the name of the government around the world.
Now
It's
you
not
want it
possible.
fully, because right now,
Now,
the
with what
banks,
you've been able to offer, you're still not able to account. Now you want it fully so that you can turn things
so
belly
that
up
you cannot
completely.
account fully. Because all you're saying is, look, right now, KLM can ask. They can ask. The banks, that consortium of banks can ask. The moment it's a parastatal, who are you going to ask? Because that's what they're saying. Call it some really genuinely fancy names. It's a parastatal. Look at KPA and the things that happen at KPA. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling stuff. It's a parastatal. The only person who perhaps sheds light into it is the Auditor General from time to time.
So that's the question. Who are you going to ask? Who are you going to ask?
The Auditor General is going
Because
to be
it's
raising
not
the questions.
so-
Parliament will be
from the
asking
very
the
beginning.
questions.
From the very beginning, is it
Public
seen?
Investment Committee of Parliament will be asking these questions.
Is it seen as something to own, or is it seen as something that is going to be used economically to raise a country's profile? From
it
the
goes-
very beginning.
are we
it goes back
saying-
to that. It's
Yeah.
what is in the minds of the leaders who are doing this.
In the
If you
very
look-
beginning.
If you look at Rwanda and the way the government of Rwanda, brought back Rwanda back up to air, and the way it's supporting Rwanda, even saying, all right, let's get into partnership with Qatar to build a bigger airport in Kigali. You can see where they're heading. And Rwanda is owned by government. So the leadership of the government is thinking ahead and saying, what do we want
This
to
is
do
what we
with
want
this
to
airline?
do with this thing.
Eric,
It is not just to make money, it is what we want to do with this airline. We want to make sure that we expand our influence in this region. We have we are converting ourselves into a MICE center. Big conference. If you want to do any conference in Africa, come to Rwanda. Next thing is, you want to travel around Africa,
We'll take you.
come via Rwanda.
Come
You
via
can
Kigali.
come to Kigali and you will be able to get onto the streets and have big meetings. See, the thinking. Our thinking here is what we're questioning. The minds behind it in government, are they looking at it as, looking at how we can exert our influence and expand our influence and push back on what Ethiopia is doing, what Rwanda is doing, and take advantage of what South Africa has not been able to do? Are we looking at that? Or are we looking at,
Eric, this position
money,
that we want to
Esa.
get to, we were already there. We were already there. There was no other airline that could touch us on this continent. We were there.
Yep.
And were there for a long time.
then what happened?
And we're not government owned. We had moved from being government owned to this arrangement that they had.
So you have to ask the question then.
So
that
what
what
happened?
happened?
But this thing was pilfered to the very bones. Kenya was making money. It wasn't a loss making company.
So the private sector people who are running it, pilfer
No,
it.
the person who headed it was a government appointee. Brian Davis and his lot left. Skyward, whatever that group was called, they left.
The
Then
Sky team.
Kenyans started running it. Sometimes you can say the thing cascaded downward. This one dipped sharply,
Nose dive.
fast. You have an airline that is serving this continent. You have an airline that is loved by other people. You have an airline that is favored because of the status it has even abroad. And this arrangement we're talking about of who owns what, we know about it. People need this was Kenyans.
This
This
was
airline
Kenya.
is a Kenyan airline. That's what they knew.
Yep.
Then suddenly, with all the things that clearly tend to make money, we are losing money. And you know why we're losing money? We're losing money if you look at how we acquired our fuel, what we pay for our fuel. How we acquired our planes, the lease arrangement, the buying arrangement, whatever, the costs. Meaning we get into arrangements that just drain money from the system. Drain it. So it doesn't matter how much money you're making, you're just draining it.
By design.
Those things don't happen by accident.
It is by design. So
Yes.
what would you have us do then?
What I'm saying is now you have it fully government.
No. Not
Me, I'll
yet.
be looking for a train to go to Europe.
What is your Rain,
Yes.
what is your
Which
solution?
stops in
What is your
South
solution?
Africa.
If we don't privatize, if we don't nationalize Kenya Airways, what do we do with Kenya Airways? Let it collapse?
First of all, look at the people who had at Kenya Airways before it fully collapsed. Anti-corruption should head and look for Naikuni and ask him these very, very hard questions. And the people who are on that board should be asked very,
time.
very, very hard questions. Because
What
how
went
did a
wrong?
profit-making company suddenly become a loss-making
loss-making
company?
company.
As that is happening, as EACC and everybody else is doing that, what should we be doing with Kenya Airways?
What we should be doing
Right
with
now,
Kenya Airways?
Kenya Airways needs cash. Right now, Kenya Airways is not able to operate. Remember when we spoke to the CEO of Kenya Airways the other day, he told us, look, yes, we've got those historical issues that you've just referenced, right? And those historical issues led us to where we are. We need to bounce back from that point. How do we bounce back from that point?
You know, we can go back to a time-tested method. The way Qatar Airline works, the way Emirates work, they did exactly what we did with the group we brought in. Exactly. A group of experts who know how to revive airlines. Us, if you're looking for people who know how to bring an airline down, that one is our area of expertise.
You know, the immediate former boss of Kenya Airways, came with those credentials.
No. I don't think you've understood me.
Group.
Not an individual.
Okay. Group.
Yes.
He came with a team.
Eric,
Basically, he was given the job and then he was told, you can come with your team.
that guy was not given a team.
Before
that guy was not given.
He was not. I don't think he
A
was
free
given
hand.
a free hand to
So
be
that's
able
it.
to operate. You know,
Who is this who's holding the hand?
It's clearly
government.
government.
Okay, so are you saying then that we reduce the interference of government,
Yes.
influence of government in the board,
Look.
influence of government by
Let's just use
shareholding in the
examples.
board?
Let's use two examples of where it's happening and happening beautifully in the world, and we've talked about them already. Look at Qatar and look at Emirates. Let's even look at Rwanda.
Government run.
Government run, but what have they done? Government owned, but it's not run. The government is giving their support in terms of financial support, but they're allowing a group of individuals do this. In terms of the running and operations of these airlines, they're allowing this group do this, and they've given them a free hand. Where they're giving their support, they're giving their support financially, they're giving their support in the machinery that is able to open up
Policy,
these spaces.
everything.
They're allowing it.
Eric,
they're allowing
you
it.
see the
We
problem.
support.
If you nationalize it 100%, what you will have done in this country is gone the way we've gone of other government-owned parastatals whose sole mandate is to make money for individuals, not the country. And not just make money through its operations, but make money in matters of procurement.
On
matters-
that,
yes.
on that, we are on the same page.
Yes.
In terms of looking at the mindset and the agenda
Yes.
of government,
Yes.
we're on the same page.
Okay.
Now, I am saying it's okay even if we nationalize it, but we must put in checks and balances to make sure that it's national, but political interference is not allowed. The business-minded politicians are not allowed to be the ones who are making the decisions
go and
in
run their
that.
own business.
So,
So let-
if they want
so
to
how
run-
do
they
we
should go and
cushion
run
that?
their own
I don't know
business
how
in
we
their own
cushion that.
constituency.
You're saying, do not nationalize it at all.
No.
So
Have
what
a
do we
majority
do?
shareholding in it like we had before.
Right now, 49%.
I have even, in fact, I have 49.9.
And then?
And then bring in a group that are known to bring airlines out of the sort of situation that we're in and say, for this 1 year or whatever time you agree on, okay, run it.
We also agree on something that you're not mentioning. That with that majority, it means that the government, the politicals in government, have influence on that thing.
Eric.
We have got to make sure that we
No.
keep those
Eric,
away.
shareholding may not mean that you have influence. The agreement would mean even if your shareholding is 51%, all right, for purposes of running this company, for that length of time we agree on, whether it's a year or two, you are not going to...
You sit down
You sit
and
there-
allow
or you
these
sit
people
there like
do their
everybody
job.
else. You just let them do their job for a year.
Let them do
Okay.
their job for a
And
year.
then beyond that, you also need support in terms of policy and other infrastructure. Talk about what the KQ CEO told us. Look, it's very expensive to fly around the continent. From Nairobi to Uganda is more expensive than from Nairobi to other parts of the world. Why? Because of all these fees and levies that we charge each other. So if government was completely thinking about, we want to use Kenya Airways to expand our influence and all, then there would be supporting Kenya Airways through these other things, going to the EAC and pushing to lower the levies of flying into these countries.
What people
the
like
interconnectivity. I don't know
I hear you
the
saying.
language.
I hear you saying. Then government needs to use the machinery that they already have to make sure that some of these things are easier, with the initial goal in mind, which is what I was talking about.
Yes.
If you don't have the initial goal in mind, then you'll also want to be involved in the little runnings about, and you will not be able to open up avenues that are needed to get this through. It's very clear. So from the very beginning, if your intent does not mirror the end goal, then you'll be wasting your time. That's why you have
Eric,
people here with political
Rwanda
advantage
didn't
now
have-
trying to make a difference.
the influence Kenya Airways had. Neither did Ethiopia.
It didn't
It's
even
something-
have an airline.
Yes.
It had collapsed.
They are having to grow it. Us, we needed to maintain what we had and take it many notches, or to keep improving on it. Now, to talk of Rwanda, it is in the public domain. If you are in a public corporation and there is even the slightest whiff that you're doing something for your personal gain and can be proved, the consequences are clearly advertised. It's not a secret.
Yep.
What will happen to you is known. And doesn't matter how close you are to the president, it is known. People have gotten jailed. Okay? Jailed as in jail.
Yes.
Yes. Pajamas.
Ndani.
Ndani. Yes. Now, all I'm saying is, I'm speaking like a layman. There are people who understand the airline business very well. And what needs to be done, even within this country, is not unknown. Believe me.
True.
But they will be interfered with. It's like you think
Yes.
you think there are no people who can run the port. They are in this
Yes.
country. Run it well.
And they're not being interfered with by the people who also know what they're doing in government, the public servants. It's the political class. So the solution for us, as long as the political class has a lot of sway, like we speak,
As long as the political
budgeting
class is
experts-
involved at whatever
budgeting
level, you're
experts
going
tell
to
us
have
our
a belly up
budget is
situation.
interfered with by the political class. The sharp people at the National Treasury will sit, they'll burn the midnight oil, they'll work on this, and then they'll be told, you know what? No. This
It's
is the
okay, let's
direction-
just move this
This is the
like this.
direction we are taking. Anyway, all right? The same thing has happened with Kenya Airways. Same political interference. Nationalize it, privatize it, as long as we still have the same kind of mindset, either our political class. This thing is going down and down and down.
When you nationalize it, I am thinking of, just as we're saying parastatals, okay? Two parastatals come to mind. Kenya Pipeline Company and Kenya Ports. People complained about Kenya Pipeline Company for the longest time. This is another monopoly. Now, I am biased here because I happen to know the current chairman. And I also know that during his tenure, I know the last time I think they gave dividends, they paid the government, I think, something like 12 billion shillings. Unheard of in the history of that company. But it means this is a chairman who knew what it is that should be done, and they were doing it, which means they could have done that. The demand for fuel in this country, it is a growing business. It's not a business that is going in the doldrums. I know of Kenya Ports Authority. Again, here I'm biased. But I know of the tenure of people who, when they're there, that port ran, and you were amazed at the welfare that people within the port enjoyed in terms of housing, in terms of just the things that were made available for the workers. They were able to buy houses. This is the organization running well. Under this gentleman, who later came to run the railways here, called Brown Ondego, people started buying houses. People started owning houses. And why? Because money had been put aside for that. All I'm saying is, when it is run well, you will see what happens.
You will see the result. It's clear.
And the government will make tons and tons and tons of money. But the moment self-interest is allowed, and this is where now DCI and EACCC come in. Because if the seriousness we're now seeing is continued, Eric, it would not matter whether we nationalize it or not.
People will shape up.
Man, you'll get jailed for sure. You said that misbehavior and well, should I call it stupidity? You'll end up you'll be incarcerated.
It's good to be optimistic like that. Six.
Yes.
It's good to be optimistic like that.
Love my country. I love my country.
This is what happens when you love your country. You're optimistic.
Do you guys
You
need a
see
minute?
the good in everyone.
Even when none exists.
Even when none completely exists, you see the good and you see possibilities of a brighter future somewhere in the horizon.
Wow.
My brother, let us see. So the conversation is coming to Parliament today. They bid to nationalize Kenya Airways. Here's a bill before Parliament. It will start being discussed by the National Assembly today. Let's even see whether MPs give time to internalize what they'll be discussing, because that's the other problem. Do MPs know? Anyway, top of the hour, on a positive note, very optimistic, because we're going to be talking about Malawi. Optimism in Malawi is very high. Shortly, we'll be talking about optimism in Malawi. So let's end with optimism in Kenya. If you share with me what you're eating, what's going to happen, City?
I think
That's a proverb.
That was not the proverb, but I like your interpretation of it. That if I share with you what I'm eating, then what it means is that two people will have eaten the same food. I may not be as full as I wanted to be, but at least I will have the joy. The joy I receive from having made someone at least have a meal ought to...
Okay.
Yes. He who eats the food of others will have his food eaten by others also.
Are we talking about the same others, or is it others?
Other people, not these ones whose food you've eaten.
Those are different
gone.
from those who will
But
eat mine.
You think yours won't be eaten. It will be eaten.
By others.
By others.
By other others.
Some you may not even know.
8 o'clock, good morning. It's a Situation Room.
It's at a standstill along the southern bypass after Dagoretti exit towards the city centre. So that's traffic on Mombasa Road combined with what is coming off of the bypass, unfortunately, this morning. So getting then towards the Timor roundabout is going to be a spectator sport today, it would appear. In other parts of the city of Nairobi, we see that there's traffic also on Mombasa Road. It's not moving inbound near Gateway Mall. At least for the last 45 minutes, it's at an absolute standstill. Patience is needed to be able to traverse that area. Coming off of Thika Road and getting into the CBD is not so bad right now. You won't have too much of a headache getting into town. That's what it looks like where you might get stuck now. If you're in a place where you want to give a heads up, let us know on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room,
Okay,
we
2
have
minutes after 8 o'clock.
CT
Welcome
Muka,
to this
researcher.
hour. We want to start on an optimistic note. Right, City? Optimism is what we are selling this hour. Just like our friends in Malawi. You are tuned in to Spice FM, broadcasting 94.4 in Nairobi. We are in Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru, 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri, 90.9, Malindi, 97.7. We also broadcast worldwide on www.spicefm.co.ke. You can watch us there. You can also watch us on www.spicefm.co.ke. I've just said that. Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The people of Malawi are very optimistic. They recently, after how many rounds of elections?
Well, it was interesting, quite a number, because 27th of June saw the day that Malawi became the first African country where a presidential election rerun was won by the opposition. And so became the second African country after Kenya where a constitutional court nullified a presidential poll, although the ruling party in Kenya went on to win the repeat election that the opposition boycotted. So Malawi's unprecedented political feat sprang from 8 powerful forces. First, a tribute to the protracted and unrelenting struggle of its people for democratic governance. And this is what they've been looking at and been seeing that now, with the gentleman now who has won, talk about Lazarus Rising, that this could be the time where Malawi will realize this fight for democracy and good governance and good leadership has been seen that and been touted by many in this current wave. And what we are seeing, that now the new president is the one that's going to bring in this new wave of, saving grace.
And you use that with all pun intended. The man is a preacher, Lazarus Chakwera. He says that he got to a point where he was arguing with God because God was telling him, this is the direction I want you to take. And he was wondering, what do you mean exactly? But as soon as he was declared winner, this is what he had to say.
We have a date with destiny. As you know, many dark forces
New President Lazarus
have
Chakwera is not mincing his words in terms of what was happening in the country and what they hope will happen in the country moving forward. This morning we're joined from Malawi by Wisdom Shimgwede, who is a journalist and political communication expert, having conversation with us then about what the heartbeat is, what is reverberating through Blantyre, through Lilongwe, through the many cities of the towns of Malawi now, as a new president has come in. And we've heard what he's had to say. Wisdom, welcome to the Situation Room this morning.
Thank you.
You're in the room this morning with myself, Ndoko, Eric Latif, and Siti Muga, and we're looking at the happenings in the country of Malawi with a new president. What does this mean?
It really means quite a lot to the people of Malawi, because you will have followed Malawi democracy since 1994. Quite a lot has been said about a number of expected development that never was. But apart from that, as you will have heard from the new president, the country had really for some time been divided along tribal lines, along regional lines. So the new government is coming with a renewed hope to the people of Malawi. Malawians are now hoping that they will see a Malawi that belongs to all of them. But that as well does bring to the new government a lot of pressure, because if you look at close to 60% of Malawians voted in the new government, that tells Dr. Chakwera that there is quite a lot of expectation, high expectations, that people are hoping for change in their lives, change in their family lives, change in national development. The national development agenda over time has really been kind of concentrated in areas where the leadership is coming from, and people are hoping that will not be the case this time around. But, if you follow the instance coming towards the election, it also brings in another dimension. That is that Malawians are now no longer the same people. They have awoken, and if you followed the street demonstrations, the way the court went on and on, it has taught people that if a government is not doing what it promised or what it ought to be doing or what I expect it to do, then I've got a right that I can go on the street and protest against the ills. And that is a huge challenge.
Well, Wisdom, can I ask you a question as you're going through that? Is that we talk about this awakening that the people of Malawi have had. Can this be seen very clearly by the fact that, a petition was made, an election result overturned, and then back to election, and they still voted in the opposition? Could you attribute this to some of the awakening that you allude to?
Exactly. But there is also one aspect that needs to be seen in context. The previous elections, we were voting using the first past the post system of elections, which meant the highest winner gets it all. And this is exactly what gave Mr. Mutharika the 38.5%, and that made him the president. Mm-hmm. But this time around, the fact that the court said we can only elect the president using the majority, and majority meaning 50% plus one, what it meant then was that a president needed to be elected by the bigger chunk of the people who have voted, which is exactly what was exemplified in the 2019 elections. Because the majority, over 50%, over 60, close to 60%, did not vote for the former president. And the same has repeated itself in the 50 plus one majority. The former president Mutharika got the same 58%. And the rest of those people that did not vote for him are the ones that have voted for Lazarus Chakwera. And the problem, if there weren't alliances, the 50 plus one could have been quite a struggle as well, and probably by now we could have been thinking of another rerun, which could have been quite a problem because the law currently does not provide for the term. So yes, people are awakening. We saw quite a lot of people turning up to vote, and talking to people on the street, you could really hear the need for a change. Literally across the country, this was the first time that we've seen the opposition leader getting quite substantial vote from the government stronghold, from the ruling party stronghold, like in the eastern part of Malawi, in the southern parts of Malawi, where it has never happened before. In the president's home, Dr. Chakwera got about close to 17,000 votes, and that is unprecedented.
How many other times has the presidency been contested within your court system in Malawi?
For a number of times. In 1999, we saw late Gwanda Chakwamba protesting the election, but they lost in court. We also saw, I think, another protest around 2009. That also we lost. This time around, the triumph by the opposition in court could be attributed to the fact that there was, I think, better preparation of the case that they brought before the court, and the fact that there were two opposition giants contesting the case as a team. I think that also did bring in some little strength to the case that they brought before the court. And if you compare the cases before and the case this time around, there was one huge difference. The case this time around did not focus on the fact that the election was rigged. The case this time around focused on the fact that there were widespread irregularities. So that was much easier to prove than proving rigging.
They clearly borrowed from the last presidential petition in Kenya, which went the same route, challenging the process.
Exactly. That's much easier because if you look at most of the presidential elections across Africa, it is really the issue of flouting procedures, not following the law to the letter, than the actual vote stuffing, for example, and the other forms of rigging. I mean, flouting procedures is a form of rigging. But it's much easier.
It actually is the process by which rigging takes place.
Exactly. But it's much easier to prove than when you want to tell the court that the vote stuffing and such other types of rigging. Yeah.
Wisdom, let's speak about Dr. Chakwera now, the man himself who's now your new president. He has been the head of the Malawi Assemblies of God for many years, and then he got into politics. Earlier, you talked about the people getting to a point where they needed change and they wanted change. Do you think Dr. Chakwera is basically the main beneficiary of that wind of change coming and aligning with him, or has he worked towards this? I mean, when did he get into politics, and how has he run his politics so that you can say that he got to a point he could dislodge a sitting president?
He got into politics in 2014. I think that's the first time he contested after the former head of the Malawi Congress Party retired from active politics. Honorable John Tembo, a long time politician. That time he was quite a surprise to see such a reverend man of the pulpit jumping onto active politics. But if you look at his leadership style over the years, leading the Assemblies of God through a number of stages, quite a back of the Malawi Congress Party trusted that this could be someone who is going to bring a different flair to political leadership. Getting into the 2014 elections, yes, he lost, and that could come back to attributed to the type of elections that we're using, the first past the post. But going forward in 2019, we saw a different person from the one that we started with in 2014. He had now put on a stronger political gloves, but he was able, to battle on the streets during the campaign, and you could see a politician now speaking than a pulpit person. Nonetheless, the pulpit in him still influences the way he talks to multitudes, the way he gives hope to the multitude. And that's I think one thing that really has given people the trust that this probably could be a different person. But that we should not also subtract the influence that came with the person that he paired with, the Vice President, Dr. Saulos Chilima. He is quite a strong person on the street campaign. He comes from a long experience of being a marketer, and not just a marketer of any other type. He's a marketer that's really revered in this country, and that had quite saw a lot of change in the way the campaign this time around as compared to 2014, but also Dr. Chilima has brought a totally different flair to political campaigning in Malawi. And that really branded Dr. Chakwera as a different person from the rest.
I get a sense, Wisdom, that it's as if the people of Malawi had gotten tired of the old politicians and they wanted something different. So when they have this person who, while they trust him from the pulpit and he hasn't had a long time operating in politics, he felt like a safer pair of hands. They wanted a change. It's like make Malawi great again.
A lot of people definitely needed change. And I'll tell you one thing that was completely new during this particular election. We saw a lot of professionals, like employed people, leaving their offices to volunteer as party monitors, just to protect the vote. And that really did tell Malawians, did tell the world that the majority of the people in Malawi really wanted change and were tired with all type of politicians and all type of politics. And they are looking forward, they are looking at this particular person with a rare hope that probably we will now see a Malawi that is for everybody, and not a Malawi that was typically belongs to just a few elites.
Is he the panacea for all of this? Is he the answer? Even in his what would be an acceptance speech, Dr. Chakwera said himself that it was time to get rid of this rot that had eaten into the very fiber of the Malawian society and governance. Is he the answer? Even if the people of Malawi needed a change, even if the region needed a change, is he the answer to this question that has been lingering for years?
As a person, we could look at him, people could look at him as the answer, but he will only become that answer if he really work on changing the systems. The systems of government in this country really require a lot of overhauling if Malawi is to realize a difference that they have promised. Nonetheless, so far, if you look at their manifesto, their combined manifestos, looking at the alliance partners, looking at the caliber of the person he is, there is hope that he is the promised Messiah, if anything.
What are these changes that he promised, and what is it that people expect? What monumental change do they expect to see out of the leadership of Dr. Chakwera?
The biggest thing that I think two huge expectations that are in people's minds. The first thing is that development must be shared equally, across the country. The northern region, for example, has been neglected for so long, and the people in the north are very bitter when you talk to them about the former leadership. And that is something that the people in the north will be waiting for. And they gave Chakwera a lot of votes. You're talking of over 600,000 as compared to about 200 for the former president. That is something that tells him that the people in the northern region, for example, are looking up to him as somebody who is going to be a unifying factor. But the second thing is the fact that this country has really lost quite a lot to corruption, and we have promised that is a priority. So being a priority, it will mean a need to change a number of things. How we do business in the public service, how we do business with parastatals, how politicians influence technocrats doing certain things. That is the key. And we have seen that probably he's already taking that part, because just yesterday he appointed his vice president to the position of Minister responsible for economic development and the public service reforms. The public service reforms are some of the tactics that Dr. Chilima already had started when he was vice president to Professor Mparika from 2014. And his removal at some point did affect the progress in that respect. And we were already hoping that he's going to pick up from where he left and push that forward. And then there were two other promises that the Chakwera campaign made in the course of in the run-up to the June 23 election. That is the ensuring that agriculture comes back to what it used to be in this country. So they promised to reduce the price of fertilizer from around 20,000 likewise at about 4,900. And that's quite monumental if it happens. And apart from that, there is a lot of graduates coming out of college in this country. A lot of the youth graduating from secondary schools need work in this country. And they promised to create at least 1 million jobs within the first 2, 3, 4 months. And that people are looking up to, and we're hoping that can materialize. Of course, I mean, we understand that the job creation in their meaning, it does not necessarily mean that they will create 1 million jobs across the hill. But we're hoping that it means creating an environment where my brother in the village will be able to access something to do.
It's something that everybody's hearing. The religious aspect cannot be taken away from this particular president, and that is something that he has ridden on already, and we know that is something that he has invited also into his administration. Is it something that the people of Malawi are picking up on to say that perhaps with the religious entrant, it could see and it also could contribute to whatever change is being sought?
Exactly. The challenge, I mean, like everywhere else, has always been the people that surround the president, and then the people that want to benefit out of being close to the president, and their henchmen, and it is the people's hope that Dr. Zakwera will be able to tell his relations, for example, that I'm not the president for my family alone, but I'm the president of Malawi, and that he will be able to tell his political colleagues in the Malawi Congress Party and the alliance partners that we did not campaign to win for purposes of enriching our pockets only, because that is exactly what people have been against all along. Over the 26 years of democracy, a lot of people have been angry with the fact that it's been a few families enriching themselves, a few families and their friends, changing. Somebody's appointed as a minister today. He was driving a small little Corolla from nowhere. He's building mansions, and everybody is wondering how can he afford that from his salary and allowances.
Which are these families, Wisdom? Which are these families? When you talk about these dynastic families in Malawi, which families are these?
Well, I mean, the two families that everybody will tell you is the family of the first democratic president, Dr. Basile Munuzi, and his friends. And then when we moved to the new wave after Munuzi, so the Mutarika family, his brother, and now him, the recent past, and their family and their friends. Literally, you look at the who is who of Malawi. Everybody points just to them and their henchmen, and that's what really has angered people over a long period. You've seen people who could not. I mean, some of them, yes, I know doing business does not necessarily always mean you must go to school. But you see people who were literally on the street, and overnight they are billionaires.
They're billionaires.
And that's something that has really not gone down well with the majority of the country.
When you talk about now, like the Mutharika family, I think going back into Bingwa Mutharika and his food security policies, what went wrong? At some point, he was being praised across Africa as the man who had ensured that Malawi had a surplus production of maize. In fact, coming from a point where you were begging to a point where you were donating food to other countries. What went south?
What went wrong was so simple. So we are giving, the government has been giving fertilizer or farm input subsidies to families. But you will see that it has been the same families over and over and over again. So people were not graduating from this, system. And there's been a call over a period of time for the country to change from targeted subsidy to kind of universal subsidy, so that commercial farmers could then get in as well and produce surplus, as it were. Well, that's exactly how, during the Kanizbanda, that's exactly how this country managed to have surplus almost year in, year out. And over the years now, the challenge has been, we are providing subsidy, but who is the the ultimate beneficiary. So apart from my grandmother in the village receiving a half bag of fertilizer, or sometimes it reached a point where 2-3 families needed to share one bag of fertilizer.
Oh my goodness!
Because you see, so apart from just my grandmother benefiting from such a policy, it was politicians and their business friends who were benefiting more. Because those were the ones that were getting the contract to supply fertilizer, contract to bring in trucks that are going to distribute the fertilizer and other. Yeah. So over the years, the subsidy which has really been increasing in terms of budget allocation has been benefiting politicians other than the people that it was intended for. So that's where we need the match. But if you compare the same budget that has been going to the subsidy, like you're talking of 80 billion Malai Kwacha, if you took the same into irrigation farming and give that to commercial farmers, this country would not have any food deficit at all, because we have enough water bodies, for example, that we can be able to produce 2-3 times across the year. But we still over dependent on rain-fed agriculture, which is largely beneficial to small-scale subsistence farmers, and those cannot produce enough food for the entire country. Because not everybody must be a farmer for the country to be food sufficient.
Yep.
You need to have farmers who are capable of producing enough for the entire nation.
It'll be interesting to see how things unfold in Malawi in the coming months and coming years of this particular presidency. Wisdom Chigwede, thank you so much for speaking with us in the Situation Room this morning and for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wisdom. Have a good day.
Welcome back.
It's a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, reflecting of all important conversations happening around us in Africa, in the world. Keep it right here, because after this short weather and traffic break, we will go to Ghana. The BBC has released a new expose. You want some treatment for COVID-19? There's some people in Ghana who claim to be able to cure COVID-19. We'll be speaking to the BBC investigative reporter who produced this particular story shortly. Good morning. It's 8:30.
Mostly sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning at 15 degrees. We'll see a high of 24 today. And into Nyeri, where it'll be a high of 22 with partly cloudy conditions through the town. And in Nakuru, 24 degrees the high and lows of 11 with mostly sunny conditions as well. It'll be a rainy afternoon in Eldoret with highs of 22. In Kisumu, we'll have partly cloudy conditions with highs of 28. Kakamega will be rainy this afternoon and we'll see a high of 26 with Mombasa raining in at 28 degrees with a low of 24. Kampala is partly cloudy this morning, but it'll be an afternoon of rain with highs of 26. And Dar es Salaam at 31 degrees the high. It'll be a wet afternoon here as well. Take a look then into Joburg, where at 4 degrees it's mostly sunny. Sunny conditions will prevail through the day with highs of 17 and lows of 3. Light thunderstorms and rain are continuing to pound down in Lagos, and this will be the story of the day through most until Wednesday morning with highs of 27 and lows of 23. All right, it seems that traffic is taking on a mind of its own this morning. Unfortunately, it's quite bumper-to-bumper situation on Kiambu Road as it tries to connect with the Thika Superhighway. And on Mombasa Road, it is still a total mess. Back in full force is what everybody's calling it this morning. All the way from the SGR, there is 8-lane traffic where there ordinarily should be 4. And then trying to get to General Motors today is going to be quite the mess. Pangani Road towards town, Embakasi is also crazy. The Thika Superhighway getting all the way to the underpass. We're having some major problems here as well. Langata Road, which has joined with the Southern Bypass, is bumper to bumper, moving very, very slowly this morning. We're still smack in the middle of traffic hour. We'll see how that opens up in about 30 minutes or so. Are you stuck somewhere? Do let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We're trying to keep people moving, but it looks like it's going to be a while before we actually do.
Thank you very much for keeping me right here on the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room is CT Buga, Nduoko, and Harry Classic. Let's move from Malawi all the way up to the west to Ghana. So the BBC releases an expose last night, and this is what's happening in terms of fighting COVID-19 in Ghana.
Spice FM. Spice up
Well,
your
it seems
life.
that there's a miracle cure.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay,
Curing
and
miraculously.
right.
So this one wants to join the band of cures that have been known to be blessed.
Morning.
Carry on.
All right. And it seems at the same time that, there was a lot of this particular drug had been previously touted to treat HIV, AIDS as well. But now, along the line, an offshoot of the same, then is being used for patients who have presented with COVID-19. And it is now, being sold openly.
So the BBC Africa Eye documentary called Corona Quacks Exposing Fake Coronavirus Cures in Ghana is now out. You can also even find it on YouTube. Basically, it was released last night, and it looks at two particular individuals who claim to have this cure. That they can, take us through this. Corona. What is Corona? We can deal with this. We can sort you out. We've dealt with HIV before. What is this Corona? Within a short time. The interesting bit is, of course, it has not gone through any
trials.
proper scientific trials. It has not gone through any proper approvals by the government. But they claim that they are doing lab trials of this. Let's speak to the person who actually did this story. And this is Ghana's undercover investigative reporter, Anas. Anas, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Good morning.
And so you've produced another one. After producing one in the run-up to the World Cup and what the African referees were doing, now this is another one.
Certainly, yes. As journalists, we cannot, in the face of all the problems, we still have a role to play. So
Great.
Our watchdog role is important.
Right.
Take us through this particular story. What is this story about, and who does it involve?
This story is about Corona Quacks, and basically it's a story of when we are all under the lockdown and we are all thinking of a solution, finding a cure to COVID-19. We were all fatigued because the stories you hear about ventilators and how we are looking for cures and all that. But as journalists, we know that when things shift to that realm of uncertainty, that is when corrupt people also take advantage of the system to milk. And this is not only happening in Ghana, and it's happening everywhere. So this film is about those quacks who came out and took advantage of the populace whilst we were under the lockdown. It's staged, the whole story emanates from Ghana and Nigeria. So in the beginning of the film, what you are going to see will be a pharmacist from Nigeria who claims to have a cure for not just COVID-19, but also for HIV and many other diseases. And we don't test his drug, but we know that everything you say must be scientific. There is no known cure for HIV in the world. There is no known cure for COVID-19 and other diseases. So if someone straight tells you that I have a cure, and you're a journalist, you have to measure it against scientific evidence. So also in Nigeria, you're going to see a traditionalist who also comes out to say that, look, I have a cure. You see a pastor in the film who also says, I have a cure. In the midst of all that, we need to find that middle ground of what really constitutes that cure that we don't know. And again, people get the impression that, I mean, when you say you are talking about these things, you want to look down on African culture. I am a big user of herbs. But indeed, as we keep using herbs, we want to applaud the good people who do herbs, traditional herbs, and also remove the quacks who do the same herbs. So the story then brings us down to Ghana, where we look out for this medicine called Coa FX. Now, Coa FX is registered under the Food and Drug Authority of Ghana as a food supplement. But as this lockdown came up, the people took advantage of it and marketed it very, very well as a corona cure. We did an undercover. We went there, though they had explicit information on their website that said that their drugs could not cure corona. If you went into the offices, they told you something different. And so when we went to Coa FS told us that, yeah, they have that drug, and they didn't just say they have the drug. They actually gave us a prescription of the dosage you need to take to cure your COVID-19. Then moves us to the Abdallah brothers, who were also, who you would see are very prominent in this film. Now, the Abdallah brothers came on social media and on TV and advertised their product as having cure for corona. In fact, on the bottle, you see that they've written COVID-1 cure, COVID-2 cure, and COVID-3 cure. So, in order to be successful in the healing process, you need to take all
three, of course.
But they also, they also put a caveat that they don't sell it. So, as an undercover investigative reporter, our job was to see whether this was just a smoke screen or behind the scenes they sell. Indeed, the story takes us into the offices of the Abdallah brothers, where there's brisk business. They are selling to people. The Abdallah brothers said they had sent some to Italy because of the numerous problems that we have in Italy concerning this drug. They also had sent some to the Niger president, and he and the family were taking some. They had also sent some to many people. I mean, they even said that they took part even when Yahya Jammeh was going to be removed. They were part of the men who took part in. So clearly we knew we were heading towards a very interesting story where people want to just take advantage. And it was not cheap. It's quite expensive because for the Abdallah brothers, we're talking somewhere around $25,000 for 100 bottles of this. So it's not as cheap money. So here are quacks who are not just doing their quackery in small scale, but
quackery on a grand scale.
On a grand scale, yes. And also,
Anas, if I may ask you before you go to that, Anas, is that, we talk about the quacks on one side of all of this, but as we always say, there's willing buyer, willing seller. So that means that there are quite a number of people who were convinced that this thing, number one, either works or that they could also buy and then sell it off. So the assumption is that there are quite a number of people who then were purchasing these drugs.
Yes, but you see, the COVID time is different. You are under a lockdown. A disease, since I was born, I have never experienced a lockdown because of a disease. So people were confused. People were looking for every solution. I hoped that the drugs that I was working on could work. People were dying every second, every minute across the world. So indeed, this itself creates a sort of panic within the human mind. Especially when these people don't market it as just a cure, but as a preventive medicine. So you think that for you and your family to be safe, it is always great to be able to get some of these drugs and then take. So under this panic, I can understand that it's perfect for all of us to think well before we buy said drugs. But under certain circumstances, it becomes exceptionally difficult to be able to do that. So this drug that I'm talking about.
And as you're saying, these are not herbs. These are not herbal remedies that we're talking about. This is actually somebody who's gone and packaged this into tablets.
Exactly.
And they're selling them.
And then syrups. Yes.
In the case of Core FX, you say it's registered with the Food and the Drug Administration as a supplement.
Yes. How
about in the case of the Abdallah brothers, this COVID-1 and 2 and 3? Is it registered at all?
Yeah, so the case of the Abdallah brothers is also, it had a fake FDA number. But when we checked, we realized that it was fake. But back to the story. At the end of the day, as a journalist, what I needed to do was to do a comparative analysis with science, because it's science that eventually will prove us correct or wrong. So I took this medicine that I bought and went to the Ghana Standards Authority. Now, our Ghana Standard Authority is ISO certified, one of the best in the world. So its results can be counted on by anybody who goes there and gets the results. This was unfit for human consumption. It had high levels of yeast and mold in there, which is very bad for human consumption. And I do remember when I was buying from the Abdallah brothers, they told me that one of the medicines, when you take, you were going to have diarrhea. But that diarrhea is a symptom of the fact that you are getting better. Not knowing that this was quite, it's not substance. That one was, yes. And then Core FX also had similar mold infection, and then you have phosphine, some levels of phosphine, which clearly makes it unwholesome for human consumption. So basically, this is what you would see in the film.
Now, when you were walking throughout this story, and I'm glad that you brought up that issue of, as Africans, there's always this tendency to go the herbal way and try some herbal, and you say you're a big user of herb. And this is not particularly that kind of route that they've taken, because if we look at what other governments have done, the government of Madagascar has said they have this cure that they are subjecting through scientific tests, but at the same time, they're already marketing it across Africa. What has the government of Ghana done in terms of cracking down on such unscrupulous business people who go around marketing this and saying, whether they're saying they're giving it for free, they're selling it, but the government must be aware of this? Has the government of Ghana done anything, or even the government of Nigeria?
Yeah. See, I can tell you that across the world, the whole world, this is the first film that is tending to look at the other side. We've all been very busy looking for ventilators and looking for how to keep ourselves safe. So one can consider, or one can understand, that there should be a breathing space for a regulator. But in the circumstance of Ghana, for the FDA for a while now has been looking at some of these, have been arresting some. There are numerous people who do it. But what I think the FDA didn't anticipate is someone being so smart enough to create these cures within 48 hours and put labels on it and concoct numbers of the FDA and put it on and do it on a large scale, selling to so-called ministers, selling to big people and exporting them across. So yes, I think that regulatory authorities across the African continent can do better. But they can only do better if we, the citizens or journalists, take that step, that huge step in providing information and assistance in helping these people do it. In our case here in Ghana, the FDA worked very independently. We were on our way, and then they were also on their way and looking at this case already. So yes, I think that this should be a call to all people that across the continent that, look, let's keep our regulators on their toes. If we found information that is necessary, let's pass it on to the regulator to take the necessary action.
So,
no, please.
So Ghana wakes up to this story this morning, Anas, and looking about getting to 7 o'clock this morning. What do you think is going to be the uproar after this?
Well, yesterday we trended the whole day just from the promo that came because of the shock people had. People thought that we were all asleep. Here was our president talking and giving us addresses. They will not. People can't believe that whilst we were all in that state of shock, somebody had proper time to commit those crimes. And I should remind your listeners that this is just the first part of the film. The second part of the film, which will be coming in a few weeks, would focus on thieves. You see, and I just give you a slight hint of it because it's still an exclusive. This film will focus. You know, our president announced some incentives for the poor. Let's get food to the rural areas. Let's get solid food for people. We are talking here about rice. We are talking about oil. We are talking about eggs. That was meant for the poor. You can't believe that on the day this announcement was being made and the food were being carted, somebody was ready. And as I was driving into that place, the president was speaking on air. Somebody was very busy selling. So this is what we are expecting in part two. Also, PPEs for frontline staff, COVID-19. You would see in our coming film how some hospitals turned this into business whilst the state was crying, whilst their own colleagues were dying on the field. Some were selling. And I can tell you, this is not just happening in Ghana. Look well in Kenya. Look well in Nigeria. Look in Congo. Look everywhere. But you see, as journalists, we've been very, 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 very busy thinking about how to save people, and we are not perhaps looking at the right corners. I think it's about time we all focus and look at the other side of those people who seek to profit from a pandemic that is worrying all of us.
When you started your investigations, how long had the two drugs been on sale in Ghana?
They had been on sale. The simple reason that they have been advertised already. I just had to tap into the advertisement. So they had hatched the plan and actually sold to people already.
How long have they been selling?
It will be difficult to put your finger on, but what you can say is that all this investigation and all these things that happened within the breakout of the corona pandemic.
Okay. Now, since that period, have there been reports of positive results from these fake cures, or have there been some adverse reports from these fake cures?
Well, it is very difficult because one, the FDA was on its feet, telling people that don't go buy anything that is likely to hamper your own health. So we don't have people coming in to report that we have taken because of the sheer fear. Because what even sent you to go and buy it? And so people, I can't say that I have gone to do a survey to look at the effect. What I can say, however, is the test that I did, what I subjected this drugs to. For COA-FX, even before I could subject it to this thing, the FDA had done their own test. That showed that there were traces of E. coli in that substance. Now, when somebody says E. coli, the E. coli emanates from feces, intestinal feces and all that, in a product that is a human being is supposed to take. So yes, we love African traditional medicine, we love herbs, we love food supplements. All we are saying is that let us make sure that it is hygienic. I have come to buy your product to take to cure a disease. The least you can give me is to be careful with the substance you have put in so that I don't end up catching a disease as a result of taking your medication. That's all. That's the signal we want everybody out there to get.
Since your video or since your publication came out, have people actually stopped buying these medicines, or have they reduced the purchase of these fake medicines?
Well, I am sure the regulators are at it. As for the Abdallah brothers, they were arrested, and in the film you see how they got arrested. FDA, I know they are facing some prosecutions from the state. I don't have the full detail, but obviously once this comes to limelight, the people get shut down.
The Abdullah brothers was, well, openly, they were not saying that they are curing COVID-19, were they?
That's where the danger is. When, yes, they said openly that they were curing. In fact, when you look at the label, they said COVID Cure 1.
Yep.
So the label itself tells you that so yes, they had a cure. What they were smart about was telling the general public that
they are not selling.
Listen, we are not selling.
Right.
You understand? But as a journalist of my caliber, your mere words of you are not selling is not enough. Go behind the scenes and see whether indeed it's just a smoke screen or there's some truth to it.
So what did they mean by saying that they are not selling, and yet they have already bottled it? So what were they doing with it?
So they will outwit the regulator by saying publicly that they are not selling. But they know that there will be some gullible listeners who will still say, if though they are not selling, wherever they are, I am sick, I want a cure.
Yep.
So I'll go and look for it. I will not wait for the regulator to certify it. They do that very well.
Yeah.
And also, they also were strategically placed in a region where education is not that ripe, so they can take advantage of the poor. It's a scam that was well developed and meant to take advantage of the poor in society.
Is there a regulatory regime in Ghana for use or even production of herbal medication?
Yes, there's a solid regulatory body, the Ghana Standard Authority and the Food and Drug Authority. They are two. So I can say that those organizations have really served Ghanaians well. But
So
like I
those
said,
those two
as
regulate-
journalists, we
sorry, and as I'm asking,
Yes.
those two, they also regulate herbalists?
yes, we have the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research. We have the Mampong Center for Herbal Medicine, who also certify all these drugs. So, herbal medicine, research shows that about 60 to 70% of Ghanaians rely on herbal medicine. So it tells you how important that is. And I'm not surprised that we have a lot of organizations that are supposed to. The problem is not herbal medicine. It's the people who are quacks within it who pose that problem.
Good.
The efficacy of herbal medicine cannot be reiterated or underestimated here. We all know what some of them can do, even much better than orthodox medicine.
Do you have any
But
herbal medicine in
what
Ghana that is properly packaged and sold this way, in this manner? For example, converted into
Yes.
tablets, into with proper methods of how it's going to be used.
Yes, the FDA has certified some herbal medicines. The Mampong Center for Herbal Research and all those people have some certification of some herbal medicines that for malaria and other diseases. So I can say that yes, we do have, and packaging is great. Not
Okay.
all, but some of them have gotten into very creative packaging that makes it very attractive on the market.
What I'm driving at here is that just to establish whether it's not odd for an ordinary Ghanaian to go and buy something in a bottle, knowing maybe at the back of their mind and thinking this is properly certified herbal medication.
Yeah, that's a tricky question because it all depends on your level of knowledge, which class of Ghanaian is going to buy. Perhaps if it's me and you, we are much more critical. We want to read labels. Some people just don't care. They are not well. And if you watch the film, you see a doctor, Dr. Bonmai, who would relate to us how such medicines have killed in the past. Fake medicines kill about 300,000 people, 30,000 people a year. And so it tells you the devastating effect that it can have on people. So it depends on the level of education. But on a safer side, we are better off letting things be clearer, doing more advertising for people to know which is good from which is bad.
So, Anas, this could point to, the possibility that there's a lot more of this going on, across board. These are two that you've been able to find after some investigation, indicative of the fact that it is rife. There are more quacks out there, not just for corona.
Clearly, yes. And like I said, since this film came, I've been talking to my other colleagues in South Africa, in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, and they relate similar. It's just that they didn't catch it early, but now they say, yeah, this man, I know him, definitely, he will be doing it. We know that he's quack, and he will take advantage. And people are now saying that, okay, let's look here, let's look there. So, yeah, I know there are a couple of people do it. It's just that we may not have opened our eyes well, but this would be a clarion call to my colleagues. And I think we should all be prepared to fish out these people. Let's not give them a field day to make money out of a pandemic that we have no cure for.
Anas, thank you so much for talking to us. Investigative journalist in Accra, Ghana, working on some of these very interesting stories and unraveling a lot of what is going on when it comes to
Thank you.
cures.
And before
Thank you so
I
much
go,
for having
please,
that conversation with us this morning.
Thank you. Before I go onto the BBC website, click on the film. The 6-minute short version is being translated into 30 African languages, including Swahili. Please go watch it.
Anas, thanks again for
Thank
joining
you.
us in the Situation Room this morning.
Thank you.
Have a good day, Anas. Well, it's a situation room. This is what we do. We go across the length and breadth of the continent to bring in the stories that are emerging out of there. This is a very interesting one, that in Kenya, we are talking about the entrepreneurs. There, it's across all levels of business.
Remember how we talked about COVID presenting opportunities for very many things?
Opportunity
It's
for
opportunities
everybody.
galore, the good and the bad.
And these ones have taken advantage of this. The core effect supplements and the Abdallah brothers with COVID 1, 2, 3, you need to take a combination. It will not come to 19, but well.
Cocktail.
Yeah. Today's Proverb City.
Today's proverb, my brother, if you eat someone's food, I'm paraphrasing, rest assured that someone will also eat yours. One of our listeners put it very well. He says, from that proverb, he gets the impression that it is much safer to steal from a thief.
Eat the other others.
Yes.
And then the others will not eat yours. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Someone says Kiambu Road imeshikana kama BBI na impunity. Wow. All right. It looks like it's a bit crazy then trying to join the Thika Super Highway this morning from Kiambu Road. That's a mess. So coming out into the CBD from Thika Road is going to be quite interesting this morning. Mombasa Road also is bumper to bumper. I don't even know if I can concentrate after that one. Mombasa Road coming into the CBD, bumper to bumper, all the way from the SGR till General Motors. And then that has affected traffic going down all the way further to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. So it looks like there we have some hot spots this morning. The Southern Bypass and then joining with Langata Road. Also a bit of a mess today. It's Tuesday. We thought that we saw the drama yesterday, but not quite. It seems that today is the one that's going to be shining out and sticking out her chest when it comes to traffic. All right, Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, but for now, apply some patience to your weight, won't you?
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty,
2.5
political,
minutes after 9
engaging,
o'clock. Thank
deep,
you very much.
controversial. In the room, we have
94.4
CT
Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi, and also for choosing to watch us on www.spicefm.co.ke or via our social media handles. We are live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Spice FM KE, as well as live streaming on Twitter, Spice FM KE. Let's bring the conversation back to what we discussed yesterday, and this was the story of Miss Beatrice Mwende. Miss Beatrice Mwende is now in police custody, and she's accused of killing her 4 children in Naivasha on Saturday. She appeared before a Naivasha court yesterday, and then she was able to speak out, and she says, "The devil made me do it." After spending 2 nights in police cells, Beatrice Mwende said reality has hit her and she is yet to come to terms with her deeds, which she termed as demonic. Speaking before she was arraigned in court in Naivasha, the mother of 7 asked for mercy, saying she was possessed and did not know what she was doing. So she gives the chronology of what happened. She says they were having supper together with the children and even watched TV before the children, whom I loved so much, went to bed, only for the evil spirits to take over. The 42-year-old says her boyfriend, whom they parted ways last year, would take control over her, ordering her to do all manner of queer things during their relationship. She claims that on the 26th day of every month, she'd be possessed by evil spirits that commandeered her to do all kinds of deeds that she was not in control of. "I've never loved anyone so much, and on this night, he took control of me, and I strangled my children one after the other before laying them on their beds." This was an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old. They were found dead on their beds next to each other. Melody and Willie were students at Milimani Primary School in Eldoret. Remember, what she also did is on that Saturday morning, she left a note behind as she left the house.
Yeah.
And she had written to the first 3 children, the firstborn of the other 3 children whom she had in a previous marriage, and she had left them elsewhere in that previous marriage that had not worked. And she was telling that firstborn son, "This is what I've done, and I'd like you to take care of your siblings, your left siblings. I had to kill these ones because of what I've gone through in life, everything else that's happening to me." Now, she talks about how after she did this the following morning, she got up and went to Naivasha town to look for this boyfriend that she talks about. And when she said that when she saw the boyfriend, she felt so relieved and lighter on seeing him before proceeding to a bar where they always met. And that's where the police came for her. When we were discussing this story, we were looking at various angles. We're looking at the angle of, look, what exactly is it that happened to lead this woman to kill her children? She narrates in her own words, she talks about the kind of hardship that she's gone through after losing her job in these COVID-19 times and being unable to properly take care of her family. She was running into rent arrears. She claims that she also was running into electricity arrears. She claims that she was unable to continuously feed her family properly, and she was just saying, "This is the end for me." Now she tells a different story here where she's sounds completely, if you just listen to her, you're like, okay, wait. Who are we talking to here?
Is it the same
And she
person?
says, "The devil made me do it." The boyfriend would possess her on every 26th, would make her do strange things that she's not aware of. And when we pushed this story further yesterday, we were like, okay, there's a part of government that is failing here. There's a part of government that is not upholding its end of the bargain on what it's supposed to be doing in terms of social protection. So this morning, let's speak to somebody who's an expert on this. And this is Dr. Annette Bogo. She is the Executive Director of Kituo cha Sheria. She has experience. She's a teacher of law. She understands gender law, children's law, public interest law. And so she's very much well-versed in talking about this particular matter. Dr. Bogo, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. You are the Executive Director of Kituo cha Sheria. Before we get into this conversation, just briefly tell everybody who's listening, what is Kituo cha Sheria and what does it do?
Okay. Thank you so much for having me today morning on the show. So Kituo cha Sheria is a non-governmental organization. We are an access to justice organization that mainly focuses on promoting rights and access to justice for poor and marginalized communities. So we have specific programs that seek to achieve this. This is done through legal support and assistance that is provided by our legal officers who work in-house. We also work very closely with volunteer advocates who provide free legal services to our clients. Then we have a program that works mainly around advocacy and governance, where we train communities to understand the law, and we train them as paralegals so that they can respond to the legal issues within their communities. And these paralegals then set up justice centers within their communities so that they can provide first aid in legal matters. Where matters are very technical, then they would refer them to Kituo. Then we have an what we call Mhaki platform. This is an SMS platform where the public can send messages to, and the legal inquiries would be responded to by our advocates. And we work also around forced migration, where we work together with refugees and asylum seekers to provide them legal protection. And generally, we seek to ensure that government if it complies with the obligations that it has under the Constitution, mainly to ensure that everyone has access to justice. Yeah.
Great, Dr. Mbogo. So the Kituo cha Sheria really does quite a bit of work just by hearing what you're saying. And therefore, you also have experience dealing with such matters like this one of Beatrice Mwenda. You've seen the story. It came out on Saturday and Sunday. It was covered extensively yesterday and also today. Just looking at the facts as they're coming out now, from your trained legal mind, what do you read here?
I read many things just by hearing the story. I also would want to note so that because the matter is pending in court, we cannot delve into a lot of the issues in the court matter. But just from my own assessment, we find that there may have been a mental health issue where the accused person, in this case, the mother of these children, may have been acting possibly under mental health condition, which may have affected her faculties. Normally, the court process is that before someone takes plea, then they would be subjected to an assessment of their psychiatric condition. And it is on the basis of this psychiatric evaluation that then the court would know how to proceed with the matter. So even as we await the outcome of the psychiatric evaluation, there are many options that will present themselves. One is that if indeed the court finds that she's unable to withstand a court trial because of her psychiatric health, then the court can proceed and make a special finding on the basis of the facts that have been presented. I think there's been a lot of conversation also around her even being interviewed by the media as to what exactly happened in stories. But the court will need to hear from her based on the facts that have been presented, possibly once the plea has been done, so that then, based on the finding, they can make a special finding which will say she can be found guilty and insane. So when you're found guilty and insane, that just means that you are technically acquitted, but then you are forced to undergo mental treatment within a government facility. But if the psychiatric evaluation then reveals that she is fit to stand trial, then she'll have to stand trial and she'll have to defend herself in the course of the trial. As lawyers, we normally require clients not to plead guilty when they are standing a trial, especially of this nature, because it's up to the prosecution then to prove its case. So if she pleads not guilty, then the court will go through the normal court procedures and then come up with a decision at the end of the trial. So I also see that we need to balance also the perspectives of the mother of these children who, as we can see from the story that's out in the media, that they seem not to have been the presence of the father of these children. So my question also has been, where was the father? because if when it comes to parental responsibility, it cuts across both mother and father. So it is clear that she was raising these children by herself with no support from the father of the children. There's only mention of a boyfriend. I don't know the boyfriend was the father of these children, but obviously then she was carrying a very heavy load to take care of 4 children on her own. So I think that also needs to be considered. And at the same time, we look also at the lives of the children who have now been lost. And the responsibility here is also upon the state, because under the Children Act, the state has the ultimate responsibility to protect children. So even though parents have a legal obligation, the ultimate and primary responsibility lies with the government. And so where children were staying with a parent who clearly then was unfit and unable to provide for the needs of the child and the children, and so maintain a safe environment for those children, then the state also has failed in protecting these children.
Right. Let me tell you now what we see from our layman's. Now, this is your legal expertise that's looking at the matter. From where we see it as laymen, we are looking at it from before Saturday to what she talks about in her story, what she wrote on that note to her eldest son. She talks about the inability to fend for her family. She talks about the challenges that she's gone through after losing her job. She talks about wishing that those children that are left, at least because they are living with another family, they're able to grow up well, but because she's been unable to take care of these ones that she has, the 4 of them. So for us, we were even discussing it yesterday, we were looking at it from that angle of the social protection and the state's responsibility in social protection, especially now during this COVID-19 pandemic, which has an impact on the economy. And we went even into Article 43 of the Constitution. It talks about economic, social, and cultural rights. And the state has an obligation to its citizens to ensure that this is possible. Well, yes, it's progressive and all, but what options did she have of accessing some of these rights?
Yeah, so the options she had, as you have rightly mentioned, is that Article 43 provides for social and economic rights, including right to food, right to health, right to social security, and others, and right to education. And the catch here is that the implementation of these social economic rights is progressive. So if we look at how the courts have defined progressive implementation, then what it means is the state only has an obligation to show us and show the court that steps have been taken to realize social and economic rights. So steps here can mean adopting policies, adopting action plans, and then setting in place mechanisms that would ensure the realization of social and economic rights. So we have a case where this particular lady had options because we have a social protection policy. The social protection policy that Kenya has makes provision for things like cash transfers, the NHIF, NSSF. All these are kind of mechanisms that are available for the public so that they can be able to, in a sense, enjoy an extent of those socioeconomic rights. Obviously, we know that the situation on the ground is not as it is on paper. And so if the mechanisms that have been put in place are not effective to ensure that every person has access to these mechanisms that the country has put in place. We wish there's a case that was determined in court where the court said that where the government is able to show, because we are in a situation where Kenya may have limited resources to ensure that everyone has a right to food, or everyone has a right to health, everyone has a right to education. So where the state then has an obligation to balance the interest of the larger community with those limited resources and the interest now of individual people. So it is it's a very tricky and gray situation, but obviously any person who feels that their rights have been violated has a right to go to court, to the High Court, and challenge the violation of this right. And institutions like Kituo have handled cases like that, where you can actually file a constitutional reference in court challenging government for failure to put in place mechanisms that will realize socioeconomic rights.
You say that the government has the ultimate responsibility for ensuring the safety and welfare of children.
Yes.
Now, what are these mechanisms that you would say the government currently has actually put in place to ensure that this mandate that they have is actually fulfilled?
At the moment we have what we call the Children's Office. The Children's Office is the main institution that starts with ensuring protection of the rights of children. It's a government institution and it's rolled out up to sub-county level. So any child who is in danger, in need of care and protection, or a parent who feels that they are unable to take care of their children alone, and the other parent needs to also step up and take on their responsibility, can present their case before the Children's Office, their nearest Children's Office, and the Children's Office will be able to address this issue by way of, one, they would do mediation between the parents if both parents are there, or if a child needs to be removed from the family which is posing a danger to their life, then that the Children's Office can actually remove the child from that environment and take them to a safe place. A safe place can be an orphanage or any institution or charitable children's institution that again is recognized by government. So the Children's Office is one such office that government has set in place. And
how many of these offices do we have, and at what level are they?
The children's offices are spread across the country, and they're at the level, up to sub-county level. So beyond that, obviously, because we've had a challenge in terms of personnel in the children's department, so we've had instances where some sub-counties may not have an officer, or they're not devolved right to the ward level. So most of the times you'd find that they'd be devolved up to sub-county level.
Okay, so now this is, just from what you've explained, this is more in times of when there's conflict between two parents, or there's conflict in the home where caregivers now are not expending their duty or responsibility. And because of that, then a child is affected. Now, if we look at where a caregiver is not able to provide for their children, just as an example, and we talked about the structure that is then available, or in most cases, unavailable in the country, to make sure that these children are taken care of. Does such exist? Can I go somewhere? Can I go to a chief's office, a subdivision of this same children's office, whether the state department, and say, look, I have been out of work for 2 weeks, 2 months. I don't have sustenance. Is there somebody who can help me? Do we have something like that exists right now?
At the moment, we don't have something where you can go and ask for provision, for example, of basic necessities. Although you can go, for instance, to the court and ask the court for the other parent to take up responsibility, and you'd be asking that that other parent be compelled to make provision for the child because you're unable to do it yourself. But where you are a parent and you're completely unable, then you can actually report to the Children's Office. And the Children's Office, because then that would be a child in need of care and protection, can actually take those children out of that environment and take them to a place where their needs can be provided for.
So, Sorry, Dr. Mbogo, if we look at it practically, you've just basically told us, yes, in terms of what the state is expected to do. The state is expected to provide these rights progressively. And by progressively, it can demonstrate that, well, we have come up with policy, we've come up with legislation, we've set up offices. However, should it end there, or should it end to a point where we are saying the government is making that effort to ensure that if you've come up with a children's office at a sub-county level, this we are talking about a constituency. So in a constituency, you have one children's office, and you know the vastness of a constituency. The next thing that you ought to do is ensure that there is information to everybody that this is where the office is and this is what the services that you can get from the office. Do we have that? And you don't even need to answer that question. I'll tell you, no, we don't.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we actually don't, and many people do not know where to go when they're faced with such situations. So I think there's a need to really, and NGOs like ourselves need to really enhance awareness. Where can people go when they have these situations?
Okay.
Most of that, yes.
Before I go to ask then what then NGOs and even organizations like Kituo would then be able to do, I still want to go back to this issue where you say that, you know, if somebody presents with children that they're not able to feed, food, shelter, clothing, basic necessities, and we say that maybe the court can compel somebody, then the other parent, to provide. What if there's no other parent? What if this is a single mother, for example, or a single father, or somebody is single by virtue of death?
Or the other parent is unable.
The other parent is unable as well. Is also destitute. What happens?
Yeah. Well, you see, the issue about the other parent being unable, you know, if you're a parent, you cannot tell the court that I'm unable to take care of my children. So you must at least show that you can provide to a certain extent. But in the situation that you described, where there is no one else completely to take care of the children, and the current person who is with custody is also unable to take care of the children, then as I mentioned earlier, the ultimate responsibility lies with the state in such situations, and the court can declare that this child is a child in need of care and protection, and if need and care and protection means that the state can take up the child and put them in an institution where the children can be taken care of. Because then the parent has demonstrated that they are totally unable to carry out their responsibility. And this then would be whether it's a children's home or guardianship. We have situations where we can allow guardianship, where another person can take on that responsibility on behalf of the parent who is currently unable to do so for a particular period of time as reviewed by the court.
Okay.
So there are many other ways that it can happen. I'm not saying that it's always effective, because as you've mentioned earlier, that people may not even know that they have these options available to them. And so there's that sense of feeling overwhelmed and like you have no other way out in such a situation.
Okay. Speaking from experience, I've had to, hold hands of people who've actually had to go through the children's office, for example. And we can talk about these things now as if it's kind of like a light switch that goes on and then tomorrow this thing is sorted out. These things take months to figure out. Some of the resolutions that you've mentioned take months to figure out, bringing in a guardian, handing them over to the protection of the state, this, that, the other thing. Let's bring in a situation that is one that the entire country, the world is going through right now. People have been rendered jobless. People don't have means of sustenance by virtue of the fact that COVID has entered into the situation. In an emergency situation, are we honestly saying that the state
will be reactive?
Will quickly, that somebody doesn't have food tomorrow, somebody doesn't have food to tide them over to the weekend. Are we going to start looking at the merits and demerits of a case and saying then who should be able to take them in a case like COVID, for example? Which many have cited as the reasons why they've been put in a difficult position.
Yes. Yeah, I totally see that angle, and it's true because the justice process is very slow. Also, this kind of mechanisms are very slow. Again, they may not even have the adequate resources to do it. And so it's that situation that in as much as we have some mechanisms on paper, the actual implementation of those mechanisms is not to the full extent that we would want to. And so it's one of those situations where we have to, that's the way the situation is. And the only way would be then to keep pushing the government to allocate funds, whether it is through court action. Because for organizations like us, the main way that we respond to such situations is by going to court for court to make declarations on rights, so that then government is forced to take up some steps. But again, I agree that there's a very thin line between what you see on the books and what is actually happening on the ground.
The line is not thin, Dr. Mbogo. The line is as wide as here in Mombasa. What is on paper? And the policy, it's here in front of us. The policy, the social protection policy, for instance, enacted in 2011, breaks down social protection into three categories: social assistance, social security, and medical insurance. Where the state is committing itself to providing social assistance to people who are in need and vulnerable in terms of even losing jobs, losing livelihoods, losing incomes. Not reactive and saying that if this person goes to court and then the court compels us to do, we shall do. No, it's the state being proactive in ensuring that it is ahead of the curve on this. In the particular situation that we are in now, the state is not ahead of the curve. How do we how do we bring the state to the curve?
Before we get it to be ahead of the curve.
How do we bring the state to the curve? The state can only go to the curve again through, in my opinion, is through activism, court action, advocacy, conversations such as this that you're having in the media. I think these are some of the ways that you push the state to actually get to that point. So it's not something that would happen overnight, because this is a historic problem that we have had. So it would mean consistent advocacy, pushing and lobbying, and just to get things the way they are supposed to be. And we're not saying that we're getting government off the hook by talking about limited resources. But I think even as we are trying to consider whether reacting through court action is the best way, some of the times we see this may be posed as a challenge that the court may be forced to say that, in this case, progressive realization. So we can see there's a policy in place, you can see there's an action plan in place. So what more would you want for the state to do? So bearing in mind those outcomes that can come from the court, I think sometimes it takes more advocacy and activism coming down from the community itself that can bring the change that we want to see.
Do we have on record any situation where this matter has actually gone to court or has been taken to court?
The matter of...
I'm going to give 3 examples. One, simply ensuring that the budget that caters for children and their welfare in this country is actually adequate. B, that the government actually fulfills the mandate that it actually should under social protection. And 3, that it has adequate structures and staff who can ensure that these things are actually implemented.
On that particular issue, I am not sure, but I know that there have been cases that have been presented to court related to the issue of realization of socioeconomic rights, and many cases have been filed through the years. The courts have been very receptive on such matters and making decisions where even governments are supposed to be monitored to see, are they really implementing the policies that they say they're implementing? Have they implemented the action plans? So the court, in some instances, have put in place a monitoring mechanism to see whether these policies are actually being done. So I think...
and who mans this monitoring system?
Where it is detailed by, where it is ordered by the court, then it will be the court itself that monitors, obviously then through the parties that filed the particular case in court.
in the case where, like in this particular rights, there's progressive realization of these rights, and the government has gone in ahead and come up with a policy, and then the government has gone ahead and come up with laws and started allocating budgets. Is there a way in which you can say, all right, so you have a policy and this is the timeline with which we expect to start seeing milestones, so that you can put the government to task by saying, from the policy itself, you have milestone number 1 which you have missed, and therefore we can take you to court and compel you to meet that milestone?
Yeah, you can definitely, you can do that. And that can be done even as a new case that where milestones have been set in place. We have a system within the law that can allow you to actually put the government in check as a member of the public or as an organization like ourselves, and put and ask the government to give an account as to how far they have gone in implementing a particular policy or action plan.
Oh, okay.
So that is there, yes.
What about the policies that are published and they don't have milestones on the implementation? Can you compel the government to go back and put milestones in those policies?
Definitely. You can do that because the article on implementation of the Constitution allows you to file a constitutional reference to ensure that the rights are enforced. So if the policy then will contribute towards enforcement of a particular human right, you can go and ask government to put in place a monitoring mechanism, and through that monitoring mechanism, you as the member of the public can ensure that it is actually implemented.
Okay. As Kituo now, for example, or other groups that are, mandated by their will to do or to help in situations like this, what would you be able to do for citizens who may come forward with a case whereby they need this help, and we know for a fact that it is not being offered? There's no structure. There's nowhere that honestly, there's nowhere that I can stand up to go to today and make a complaint and say that, unless I go to the chief and then maybe the chief will find some ad hoc way of talking to somebody. There's no way, no structure that I would go to today and ask for this kind of help. Bodies like Kituo, what exactly then would they be able to do for people?
Yeah, I think for us, I would look at it from two angles. The first is to deal with structural issues that have given a rise to such a situation. So for us would be also to empower the community itself to be able to put the government in check. Because now we have government at county level and national level, and communities can be able, through the framework of public participation, put the government in check and see our budget being allocated for their priority concerns. Or if a policy that has been put in place by a county government, is it actually being implemented? Is the particular law responsive to their needs? So what we do is we empower the communities to be able to engage with their governments at county and national level, and to ask relevant questions that would then put government in check and make sure these structural issues like budget allocation and implementation of policy, formulation of policy and law are actually put in place. The other way we would respond is through, because we are a legal organization and we have also other partners, is using the courts to facilitate implementation, or again put the government in check, or force government to institute or set institutions that will ensure that these particular laws and the Constitution is implemented. So we have in the past filed constitutional petitions in court just to address some of these issues on socioeconomic rights. Sometimes we are successful, other times you're not successful. But I think even why the main point would be to just make a statement, grab the attention of government, and so that they can then bring a change. Yeah.
In this particular case of Beatrice Mwende from Naivasha,
Yes.
we can see, just without even getting deep into it, you can see some breakdown in several factors. Number one, there are children who are living clearly in some danger, because we cannot assume that this just happened one day, that she got up and decided to take the action that she took. So there was no mechanism of detecting what the danger that the children were being subjected to. Secondly, as this was happening, there's also the issue of what was happening to Miss Beatrice Mwende herself. If indeed, after psychiatric examination, she's found to have a mental condition, it also means that there was a failure to detect this, which would have protected the children.
Yeah.
There's what she has raised herself. She says, I got to a point, I lost my job, I had no income, and yet I have 4 children. There's a failure of somewhere of structure that is able to notice there are 4 children in this home, and their mother has no way of earning a livelihood to support them. So those kind of failures, in this particular case of Beatrice Mwende, what can Kituo cha Sheria do to raise the issues, to advocate, and to put the officials who are responsible for this to account?
Yeah. So I think as first mentioned that when we talk of failures, there are failures at many levels in this particular case.
Yep.
Failure by the immediate family, one, to recognize her situation.
Yep.
Failure by her community itself, her neighbors, to do so. Failure by government and also by non-state actors to pick up a situation like that. Because when you talk about children matters, we take the approach, the African approach, that a child is a child to the community, not to a particular parent. So everyone has a responsibility to protect that child at the end of the day. So by these 4 children having lost their lives, the entire community has failed. Government has failed, as we have failed. The families that had immediate family has failed. So we all need to do an internal reflection as to what really happened, and that we all need to kind of take responsibility for what happened. Number 2, as to what we can do as non-state actors. We, as I mentioned earlier, we use the advocacy approach mainly to push government to make changes. So we just to talk about such situations, it requires government to put in place mechanisms that we have already discussed that are just in paper but are not actually on the ground. And finally, I think we as Kituo, we could approach the court for a constitutional reference that mainly seeks to put a monitoring mechanism and put government in check as to obligations that are already set in law and what it's doing about it. I think just by posing these questions, whether it's through a court action or through advocacy and activism, I think that is a step towards improving the situation.
So are you saying that then, I mean, as we wrap this up this morning, are we saying that it's possible to push, I think you've used those 2 words today, push and force government to then institute structures that will essentially serve to the protection of people when it comes to basic needs? Is it possible to do that, push and force, so that government will then institute?
Yes, it is possible to do that. And now our constitution in Article 10 speaks to public participation in all affairs, including government affairs. So we have a right to push government to do what it needs to do so that we can see a much better situation in terms of realization of rights. So we can do that as organizations, as members of the public can do that as well. So I think now just taking that step in a very organized fashion is what we need to set in motion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Annette Mbogo, for speaking to us.
Thank you too for having me.
Thank you for your insights.
Yeah.
Dr. Annette Mbogo is the Executive Director of Kituo cha Sheria, a non-governmental organization that advocates better access of justice to all citizens. Have a good day, Dr.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
At 18 minutes to 10 o'clock, let's take a quick break, weather and traffic, and then conversation continues. Good morning.
It's 19 degrees and warming up in Nairobi. We'll have mostly sunny conditions with a high of 24 today. And in Nyeri, we'll see a high of 22 and lows of 13 with mostly sunny conditions. Nakuru at 24 degrees will be partly cloudy for most parts of the day. And moving then on to Eldoret, where there will be wet conditions in the afternoon with highs of 21 and lows of 12. Kisumu looks like partly cloudy conditions for most of the day with highs of 26. All right, taking a look then into Kakamega with mostly sunny conditions, highs of 28 today. And then in Malindi, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 27, highs of 29 and lows of 25. All right. And in Mombasa today, we saw some showers early on in the day. We will see highs of 28. Kampala will see highs of 26 today with rain conditions in the afternoon. Dar es Salaam will see highs of 31. Showers will continue all through the day, well into Wednesday morning. All right. Johannesburg will see a high of 17 today with lows of 3, sunny conditions through most parts of today. The thunderstorms still continue to come down in Lagos at 24 degrees. We will see highs of 28 and lows of 21. It's getting close to morning in New York today, and we will see highs of 27 with rainy conditions when the sun does come up. Paris looks like partly cloudy conditions and then clear conditions and then cloudy conditions again with highs of 25 and lows of 16. And finally for today in London, 19 degrees the high, lows of 14 and cloudy conditions through the day. Hasn't gotten too much better on Mombasa Road today. We're likely to see dregs of that traffic through most parts of this morning. About an hour or so, but it should be able to open up. Looking at Ngong Road as well, parts of the road where they would have completed, we have a little bit of a hold up there as they're trying to fix some issues. The Thika Superhighway, people are trying to squeeze their way in at all costs, getting into the CBD. We didn't get out of traffic hour as early as we thought we would today, especially here. So there's traffic around the county. It would be around the metropolis. Outside of Nairobi, however, it's not too bad today. In Mombasa and in Kisumu, actually taking a peek into Nakuru and Eldoret, not too terrible either. Have a safe day, won't you? And we'll see how it picks up later on in the evening.
So 10 minutes as we conclude the show. What do you guys make of new developments? So first the development beautiful the interview that she gave saying the development giving the history of the relationship with the children, and then the insights that we've had.
Spice FM. Nyeri.
Notwithstanding, whatever came out.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
That she was still having to come to terms with. Things that would have come up after that as a result of an arrest and then being put in custody, that, the other thing. I think the fundamental issue still remained that she was not able to provide for her family in a way in which she was able to do before. That having lost her job would have been a kind of foundation shaking thing for her, and then not being able to provide played a major role in all of this. All of these things are important in this whole thing. But I think at the crux of the matter, the fact that she could not provide anymore played a major role then in the events that would take place thereafter.
Yeah.
And that's obvious.
People who live in the low-income bracket tend to live in the sort of places where they can afford the rent. Failure of the government to even provide an opportunity for people to know what it can do. Because if you had extension workers, not just social, extension workers who took the time to visit such places to explain some of the things that the government is supposed to do. People attached to the department which is attached to the ministry that should be doing this work as part of their duties, then we could say she'd already been given the information. But such a situation is, well, should we say a figment of my imagination? Because it doesn't really exist. But if you look at the report we have in the papers, and if we also read what this lady has said, the first thing that should be done is she should be assessed. Her mental condition must be assessed. People don't just wake up and kill their children.
It's a first thing that should have happened. Even looking at, okay, so you've taken her into police custody and, all right, granted, there are procedures, there are processes that are to be followed. So you go to court and then you tell the court, we are holding her so that we can take her through psychiatric test. Surely, at the same time, what is it that could have been done immediately? When you hear that story, that triggers something immediately that tells you this is something we should do right now. Putting her in a police cell without even understanding her mental state, dragging her through court and taking her back into a police vehicle and taking her back into cell, you still have not ascertained the state of her mind. She is still a danger to herself.
There you go.
You actually have no clue. But you see, this is the problem with procedures and where they take precedence and where they take over our lives. Thinking doesn't come to the fore.
Yeah.
And logical thinking of that.
No. We're told we're following procedures. Okay.
Normally what we do here...
Even think a bit, step out of the procedure for a minute, right? Because look at what is being dealt with right now.
That whole story is bizarre. It's unusual.
For anybody
it's
who comes
unheard
across
of.
it, really.
I mean, how then can you just look at it and say, oh,
what we need to do.
Okay.
If we took this case to court and said, look, there are children here who have lost their lives.
Yes.
From a children's rights perspective, children have gotten to a point where they lost their lives. You want us to start arguing back and saying, at the constituency level, there is a children's officer.
There's a children's office.
There's a policy. There's a law.
So this is the person you need to go
there's
to.
There's a Children's
see.
Act. And this is what you did. The options were there for this person to go and do this and the other.
According to the law, those options exist.
And the way they keep saying ignorance of the law is no defense.
Actually, up to that point, they're absolutely right. But the truth of the matter is, it has to be argued that anything that protects children, you see, from the time that fetus becomes a child that has been born, then some effort must be made to ensure that that child's life is protected.
Remains alive.
That child, you are going to say the mother should have known some of these things. All good and well, she should have known. But all these things boil down to who bears the ultimate responsibility. And the law tells us the ultimate responsibility
is the state.
It's the
Yes.
state.
Zachary in Nakuru.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Zachary.
I told you can always count on me. And very briefly, because we are ending the show.
Yes.
Let me state this: that an investigative mind will look at first of all the pictures of the kids. Yeah, I saw them. I also saw the picture or the photo of the mother. And telling by their physical appearance, these are people who used to have a good life.
Yep.
The kids don't look emaciated. The mother doesn't look emaciated or like a poster showing showing the sign of poverty. What has happened is this, that the mother was caught unawares by the COVID lockdown, and she had not prepared. And many of us are going through the same problem, and therefore this one overwhelmed her. They overwhelmed her. But let me state this to any person who is listening, and he probably has his kids or even his or her life, Kids are a legal entity from the father or the mother. Should there come a point whereby you feel that, I'm overwhelmed, I can't take care of these children, just take them somewhere. Talk to people, like I said yesterday, that I'm at this juncture whereby I used to provide for my kids, but now I'm unable. I'm very, very sure that woman would have called people to chip in.
So, calling fellow citizens.
Definitely, fellow citizens, because Eric, you cannot say
is
that.
Is there a role that the government would play here?
Let me tell you, before you think of the government, think of the many policies and the much bureaucracy that you have to go through to say that you can't buy a gorogoro of maize, to prove to the government that you cannot buy a debe of maize to give to your children. There are so many forms that you will be required to sign, and maybe the kids would have died by the time they got. Talk to your neighbor, the immediate neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zachary.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one. Let's conclude the show. I'm unconvinced in terms of, following all those procedures. The court will tell you, we can see that the government has made effort.
Everyone knows how those systems work. Everyone knows how those systems work.
And even the government knows that. And that's
You're
how
talking about a children's department. You remember what we were told by the good justice. The budget for that department is not just inadequate. It's abjectly. It's at the very. It's a joke.
Yes.
What are they supposed? Okay, they're supposed to. What are they supposed?
What are they supposed to do with it?
Yes.
By the time they finish counting the things they're
if
not
you don't
able
follow
to do
it up
with that
by
little bit.
resourcing it, by supporting it with adequate resources, then it's absolutely nothing. It's a policy just on paper, but a policy on paper without any route to implementation or will to implement it
remains just that.
Useless. Let's conclude the show today. CT, today's proverb.
If you eat the food of others, expect your food to be also eaten by others.
Mm-hmm.
What goes around?
What goes around comes around.
Yes.
What did you say about the hyena and the vulture and what?
The hyena goes to eat the lion's food. The vulture comes to eat the hyena's food. So you've eaten somebody else's food, expect somebody else to come and eat yours. What goes around comes around, yo.
Today we had news of somebody who was actually eating the meat of a hyena in the papers.
Literally.
Literally. So, yes, that guy clearly.
Meat belonging to hyena or hyena meat?
The hyena had been killed. And I think he saw this is meat that he's going to waste. And he was eating it raw.
Oh, okay.
Oh, raw.
Right, okay.
Okay. Have a good day, folks. We'll see you again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif signing off. Remember to join Monique from 2 to 7. From?
3.
3. 3 to 7. She'll be here on Spice Drive. Have a good day. Bye-bye. It's 10 o'clock.